Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the UD6 August Tournament Finals. I'm with Mythical. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Twin, even more so than usual because I am excited for what could possibly be the closest tournament finals match, whatever, almost anything that
Yeah.
we've had in the UD so far. The
Yeah.
players are what, 90? I did the math earlier and forgot. There are 84 points from separating first to last across all 10 games.
Yeah, it's super close. It's going to be very interesting. Today we are doing the five first game and tomorrow the five others, adding all the scores for each game, and whoever comes first and seconds will gain their place to the grand finals. We are only ending 8 of those during the entirety of the UD6, so they're pretty expensive and it's hard to get to there. So Skunkov, Damask, Cute Shadow and Fireman, as you said, 84 points between first, which is Skunkov, and Skunkov we've seen during the July finals, so he's probably like the most experienced runner today and has like his best shot at it, but also we'll get to see Brother Main scores today. They qualified already, but just to get like a sense of comparison to where they're at and where Fireman, Cute Shadow, Damask and Skunkov stands, we'll just get a peek at their scores for each game. So it's going to be pretty intense.
It's also pretty interesting the way that individual game matchups have all kind of shaken out. There are a number of games where the players are just pretty much even right across the board. The end is nigh. There's only 12 points between first and second, and the gap. I think the biggest gap is Donkey Kong Country, where it's 40 points between best and worst, which is not a lot to be the biggest gap. Most of them are in the 20 to 30 range, and further still, there's like they pair off in really interesting ways. Every match has at least two, if not three, or two pairs of people who are going to be very evenly matched. So I think it's going to be a fun watch for everyone and pretty much every single game.
Yeah, so first on the list, Fireman. His strengths, clearly, Inertia, Trials 2, DKC is up there. His weaknesses, Middle Slug and Shovel Knight, I'd say. That's where it's going to hurt today. They have a good shot at getting up there, but it's the last two games they're trained, and it kind of showed last week. So still, they are incredible at first-person games. Inertia and A Story About My Uncle treated them very well, and yeah, maybe Cuphead also is going to be one of the toughest spot for them.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All our competitors today are quite evenly matched on Cuphead, except for Fireman, who's about 20 points back from the others, including Cute Shadow, who this past week has got a new PB on Inertia, which we'll see tomorrow, but A Story About My Uncle got a new PB. We're actually seeing a faster race time than PB for a bit of a discrepancy there on A Story About My Uncle, but I think Cute Shadow's still one of the weaker players of the four today on that game, so I was looking to shore up that weakness, and actually Inertia as well. So is looking to become more well-rounded, I suppose. Is the strongest player on Shovel Knight today, as well as having really strong Metal Slug and Ariat Sorrow. But that Shovel Knight time, this could be really close. I just don't want it to be, who finishes Shovel Knight and who doesn't. So the Cute Shadow is, got the best chance of finishing Shovel Knight. And the player with the least chance is probably the Mask. PB of 110 points. You can see that bar is just about 1/10 past the 1/10 full past that 100-point mark. Only a minute 40. And in front of that hour cutoff, it is 100 points you lose if you cannot beat Shovel Knight in an hour. So the Mask is very strong on many games, but has one or two weaknesses, and one of them being this Shovel Knight. So hopefully it's not the Achilles heel situation here.
It's going to be very interesting to see how well the runners do, because you can see we have the PB on the runners, but also their best race time. And best race time wise, Cute Shadow is the first of the 4 today we are going to watch. Skunkoff is the second with 16:01 in races. No time on Shovel Knight though, never beat the game on time during any race. So that was his biggest weakness during the past July tournament. He got the 2 silver star, which means on the top right corner, that means he got to the finals last week. So that's already incredible just in itself. And they got like an incredible trials PB. That's where they're going to smash everybody out, like completely gain maybe 40 to 50 points even just on that single game. Very good Cuphead also, very good Story About My Uncle. They're just very well rounded on every game, and it's going to be super tough to beat. We'll see how that worked for them. But clearly, Cute Shadow, Skunkoff, it's going to be just like a fantastic duo. And yeah, overall, I don't know who's going to be the fastest, because like Fireman, if they can overcome their weaknesses on Metal Slug and Shovel Knight, like everything can happen.
Yes, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting was that the Mask is actually on the overall leaderboards, hopped up 3 places over the past week. Worked on A Story About My Uncle, The End Is Nigh, and Inertia, which actually puts him 1 place above Cute Shadow. So if you were just looking at these numbers, you might think it was Skunkoff and the Mask who are the 2 to watch and the most likely to qualify, but Cute Shadow has been so consistent during races. It's been very impressive, and honestly, I'm with you. I think that him and Skunkoff are going to be the players to watch as they get into game number 1. We can see our clip rolling here. It's going to be Metal Slug, and it's one of the games where the players are fairly evenly matched. Nice spread of about 20 points or something between best and worst. So it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, Metal Slug is super difficult like to beat on time. It's an easy game to beat as they have unlimited credits, so they can just go full ham, waste their HP anywhere they want. But beating it on time means you have to have a good boss fights, especially the final one. You have to know what you're doing pretty much, and sometimes that can be super tricky. So we'll see how well that goes. The points go super fast, 1 point for 3 seconds. So if you die, just like the animation to come back, you will lose like a point or 2. So it's all resource based. You have to manage everything. And we can see their PB there. So first best PB 13:35 for the Mask.
Just 3 seconds back is Cute Shadow. Then about 20 seconds, we got Skunkoff, and then another 40 for Fireman. So Fireman playing a little bit from behind, but like as you can see, there's just a little over a minute separating our top and bottom times here. So it should be a pretty good one. A minute is, that's the difference between a good final boss fight and a bad final boss fight. So that alone could be the thing that helps Fireman make a charge here in Metal Slug game number 1. Going to be hoping to start strong. We haven't seen too many people really nail that final boss fight. We've seen people do pretty good. Get a lot of shotgun shots off, get a lot of bombs, but I don't think I've seen anyone finish the game with the shotgun still.
We've seen some pretty good finish, like attempts with a lot of grenades at the middle slug, the shotgun, and just like barely dying on the first like few hits.
Right.
But yeah, we still have to see like a very good solid final mission. But here we go. First mission should not be too bad. You start off with like a heavy machine gun, everything you need. Every time you will spawn, you will always have 10 bombs, which are super useful, and you have to use them like correctly if you want to save time. If you need more grenades, you can always die and respawn with 10 more, but that costs a little bit of time. But we'll see some of that during the run. Except that you'll see the runners save the prisoners just barely when they need the resources they give. So here we saw everybody save that first one to get 10 extra bombs, and they should be done super quickly. Fireman died, so they have to farm for more resources there, having a super slow first level.
Good knowledge of the backup, though, going up and getting what he needs to finish off that fight. That's going to put him back, I don't know, 15 seconds or so in the first level. It's not a long game, but there's still a lot of it left to play, so definitely not out of it yet. Cute Shadow, Skunk Off the Mask, all very close still. I suppose this has generally been the case with Metal Slug. There are some pretty tricky things and lots of opportunities to lose time because those deaths are so punishing. But you know, not too many deaths happen on that first stage. So getting into some tricky stuff now on the bridge. Cute Shadow is timing their jumps to make sure that they don't have to do any, last frame business jumping off of the collapsing bridges, and it looks like everyone has the same mentality there. That means they keep their feet on the ground a little longer, so they're not getting the increased jump speed. They're not going as fast as they could, but it's a big safety trade-off that most people seem willing to make in this game.
It's super close between Skunkoff and the Mask. They got to the boats at the same time. The Mask barely got faster kills on the boats. But Cute Shadow is still in the lead with the shotgun. Will make quick work of all those enemies. You're just knowing exactly where they're going to spawn, so he goes left and right accordingly. I love that when someone knows exactly what's happening in the middle, so they can just preemptively shot at everything. It's so great. The mini-boss should die super quickly with volleys of 2 grenades, a +1 shotgun shot. Shotguns deal a ton of damage, so the quick walk of those and get on the slug for the first time. The slug is something you want to avoid as much as possible during the run, but just here the screen gets stuck and you can kill everything at the same time using the bombs and the heavy machine gun of the tank, and they get to the boss super quickly.
Everyone else really not too far behind, throwing away that slug as soon as they don't need it anymore. The lag frames on that gigantic jumble of sprites clogging up memory, definitely not something you want on the screen for very long. Cute Shadow with a very quick boss fight, stretching out that shotgun usage, and Skunk Off in the Mask now as well. Actually, Skunk Off died right at the end. He's going to get, or was the boss already dead? I'm not sure, but maybe he got away with something there. Still in second place by just a couple seconds ahead of the Mask, and Fireman has done a great job keeping pace through Mission 2.
Yeah, so Fireman, all their time lost were on Mission 1. Cute Shadow starts Mission 3, the snow level that starts with a big climb. Climbing in that game is kind of tricky because the platforming is not as precise as you would like. The platforms and the hitboxes sometimes don't really match what you see, and you have to be super careful with judging everything and getting there exactly where you want them to be. Super quick work on that gate, just jumping barely under the door for Cute Shadow using their grenades, and you can see them sometimes like being super careful with their positioning, just going left and right to be sure their feet is on the ground.
Yeah, I saw that from Cute Shadow. Wasn't sure he was going to make that platform, so when he landed on it, started walking backwards the other way, and it was just sort of if I don't make this platform, I want to be holding this direction right now because I want to safely get back to where I jumped from. But was able to react and not run off the side of the platform, thankfully. Skunk Off dying here to the mini-boss. that Cute Shadow did so well. The Mask also dying. There is a nice strat here where you get close and bait out his knife attack, then jump over it.
Wow.
But he's really not cooperating here. A second death for Skunkov giving him trouble. He's very red, so he's almost dead. There he goes. He's going to be able to move on. But the Mask as well also is having struggles with this boss. Fireman dying as well. The Fireman is just about caught up to the Mask at this point.
The Mask got a nice death actually because he's there with his machine gun and all full grenades, so that means they should have like a decent time making the skip there, and yeah, just got it. The heavy machine gun seems to help to get there on time. And just using the shotgun and barely dodging those missiles, the Mask makes it, waiting for the tank to drop their bombs before actually scrolling the screens. Fireman getting there, also Skunkov in the cutscene, and Cute Shadow already almost at the boss on the final screen before that, using the HP on this slug just to make quick work of the tanks, and here we go. 8 cannon shells, but what's going to matter a lot is all those bombs is going to be able to spam out. Just being in the slug remove the limit of 2 grenades on screen, and yeah, just like that, the boss dies and is already done. Very nice lead from Cute Shadow there.
The placement on those grenades right at the front end of the boss. I'm not sure if that's totally a speed strat, like, keeping the boss off screen so there's less lagging. I'm not sure, but it seemed very much intentional. And we're seeing the same thing from the Mask, who is thankfully they bounce, so they will still connect with the boss if you are in front of it. Maybe he's just trying to avoid the gun on the front or on the back. I'm not sure, but the Fireman's going with something a little safer here, getting in the metal slug and just kind of shooting down. Or I guess he ran out of bombs, and now he is trying to shoot with the shotgun, and it's not quite reaching. Rocket launcher will help a lot to finish off this boss. He is bleeding so many seconds. It was just like 2 or 3 rocket shots that he needed to finish off that boss, so that is very unfortunate. Big time loss for a very small mistake.
Mission 4 is super quick. Cute Shadow is almost done already, as the Mask and Skunkov have an incredible sync, like just a screen behind. Skunkov is trying to catch up, but the Mask is not stopping there, and that series of jump is kind of scary. Skunkov took their time to just bait the attack from the enemies and dodge them. Cute Shadow already at the boss, already done actually, and Fireman is bleeding seconds here and out, like he's not dodging clearly those shots, dies there. He's going to respawn, get the continues, he's going to get the machine gun, but that's not the best place to have that, so he's just going to make quick work of that level, but the Mask and Skunkov will be already done. The Mask took a nice lead on that level to Skunkov actually.
Yeah, he is making a bit of a charge here in game number 1. It's going to be hard to catch Cute Shadow, who has earned, he's almost at the end of a very long screen here at the start of Mission 5. It's Cute Shadow and the Mask who are the strongest at Metal Slug, so this is sort of the expected result here, but Skunkov is doing his best to disrupt that right now, also joining these players on level 5. Fireman continuing here on the boss, not sure how much he needs to finish it off. It looks like he is going to need all those bombs, so you'd rather not have to continue to finish off a boss if you can just, get the one respawn without waiting for the countdown and inserting your fake credit and whatnot. It can be pretty quick to get that 10 bomb refill, but those deaths stack up a little bit. Cute Shadow on the boss here, just kind of camping out underneath it and tapping it every now and then. The boss is kind of already dead. He's just waiting for it to realize that it's actually dead. The Mask and Skunkov joining him now on this fight.
The Mask bled like a lot of seconds on the way to the boss, died a couple of times where it did not need to, and they're just like both waiting for the boss to die. The Mask taking a few deaths, but that's not, doesn't matter at all. Skunkov should be done super quickly, dies also, so the boss will crumble right now actually. So the Mask has like a 10-second lead to Skunkov, but Cute Shadow is almost like a minute ahead, which matters a lot in Metal Slug.
So Cute Shadow didn't quite get the knife skip at the start of the final mission, and also didn't get the shotgun, so is in a very tough screen now. with not a lot of resources. We've seen a lot of deaths here, even from players who do get the weapon. You know, I was gonna say did a fantastic job. Did do a fantastic job on screen number 1, but jumps right into a bullet with his face and the second screen. Still quite a bit ahead of the other players, but you know, they're coming. So we'll see how this final mission shakes out. Ditching the shotgun for a heavy machine gun is a sad state of affairs, but
Cube Shadow saved a prisoner here, and that might change the drops he gets on the boat. I'm not sure though, but the leftmost prisoner should have the shotgun, but if he doesn't, that means the boss fight is going to be way harder. Look at the mass screen, they have all 4 prisoners there, which means they will have the shotgun. And they actually caught up very well to Cube Shadow on those 2 screens. The bridge screens are the hardest of the game, like clearly dodging everything and not dying is super tough. And the mask is saving his shotgun on the left side of the boat, which is a nice safety strat. Now it just has to be careful not to pick it up by mistake.
Also needs to not kind of spawn on top of it. Usually it's off to the side, so you're going to be okay, but it always worries me a little when a player dies and that S is on screen anywhere. But he's going to be okay for now. In a lot of ways, the final boss fight starts with these prisoners. You're trying to keep that shotgun there so that you have it for the final boss fight. And it's easier said than done. A lot of players don't even get into the fight with the shotgun to start it off right, and then keeping it through the fight and actually using it on the boss is sort of another matter entirely. So Skunkov does have that shotgun there. It is pretty close to the gun in a way that makes it very tricky to make use of the gun. You get some invincibility frames jumping on and off it, and so when these parachuters come down in particular, they can give you some patterns with their shots that they shoot at you, so it's kind of your fault if you give yourself a nigh undodgeable pattern. But this is a pretty hectic game, and it goes that way sometimes, so it can be really nice. We see Cube Shadow doing it there, actually.
Cube Shadow dodged the shot, and again, did not die there. Used a lot of grenades, though, but still has the slug. They don't have the shotgun, sadly, so that's going to matter a lot, and the mask actually caught up to them quite nicely on those screens, having exactly the resource they need. Did not wait for the slug, so that means less lag on screen, gets to 24 shotgun shells and 50 bombs, so that's everything we want to kill the boss. They have more than enough. Now they have to dodge all the shots, and the shot from that boss are super tough to dodge. Misses the first grenade, has the worst pattern at the start, will make their best to dodge all the shots, misses 2 shotgun shells, and that gets sniped. And sadly, that means all the time they got on mission 6 is going to be nullified there.
We're seeing Cube Shadow actually bringing the Metal Slug into the fight. This is a safer alternative that some players have been opting for, and it looks like it's going to help out a lot here. Hasn't even taken a hit. All right, there's 1 hit. Meanwhile, the mask. Oh man, that is heartbreaking. To work so hard to get there with all the proper resources, and then just make a mistake, and it all is for naught. Oh,
and gets the slug crash. That deals a ton of damage. That's at least 2 shotgun shells worth of damage. So that 4 bombs for free, and just is going to hammer his good old pistol shots, dies intentionally, gets back to 10 bombs, gets a good jump, 4 bombs to the face, and the boss should be dead super quickly, and the time is actually quite good. So just having the final bombs and kills the boss without even dying. 14 minutes and 12 seconds. We'll see their accurate final time later on, but that's a fantastic time, and the mask was in the lead with more resources getting to the boss and took a heartbreaking death, but finally kills it. 4 or 5 points behind Cube Shadow. Skunkov is also already done, and Fireman with the shotgun trying to deal as much damage as they can.
Pretty sure this death on this missile here is intentional. It's going to get that heavy machine gun, but that's really not the advantage of taking a death there. It's those 10 bombs. They do a ton of damage. And the heavy machine gun kind of doesn't. All those shots are basically pistol shot damage. They just come out a little faster. But any DPS increase you'll take. But it's definitely not worth getting 10 more bombs. So presented with the worst pattern, the missile sweep, you can't really hit the boss during that time or afterwards. So most players will jump into those missiles, take a death, respawn while the boss gets back on screen, and come back at it with those 10 bombs. So we saw a fantastic run from Cute Shadow, a neck-and-neck finish between Skunkoff and the Mask, and then Fireman doing his best to salvage a bad situation. Got started off on the wrong foot, but kept it pretty close. I think that was about 45 seconds, maybe pushing a minute there, dropping back from Metal Slug, which is really not too bad, especially when there's a lot of games to play, and that was kind of a weakness for Fireman in the lineup. So he's got other games where he can make up that difference.
And one of those games is A Story About My Uncle. We are going to keep it fast and nice today, switching to the second game as fast as possible. How do you make like the change of the state of mind between Metal Slug and A Story About My Uncle when you have to run those two games back to back? Because A Story About My Uncle, as you can see, is very different. So it's a first-person, fast-paced platformer with a grappling hook and a lot of tricks and a lot of movement techs, and clearly you have to get everything out of your mind from Metal Slug and get into a new set of mind and roles to get there, and usually it goes quite well for the runners. The Story About My Uncle goes nicely and smoothly, but just before we get there, let's see how well the runners did.
All right, so squinting a little bit on my commentator view to make out these numbers from this background, but Cute Shadow in first, actually beating Brother Main, who is our sort of a pacemaker here, the pace car out in front. Brother Main already qualified after placing second in the July tournament, and is here to provide what one of the top players is what their times are gonna be like. But the real competition here is between Cute Shadow, the Mask, Skunkoff, and Fireman, who are 1, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Actually, no, I take that back. 1, 3rd, 3rd, and 5th. We did have there's a 1 second difference, but the point total is you get a certain number of points based off of your time. And so there's a couple different times, a couple seconds apart, that will all give you the same points. So actually a tie between the Mask and Skunkoff, and only, 13 points back is Fireman. So that's kind of the run that he's really looking for in a game where he's a little weaker. So he's probably not too worried about this.
Yeah, the PB difference between Fireman and the Mask or Cute Shadow is actually over 20 points. So being less than 20 points behind means they did like better actually. So it's all about PBs and personal preferences in the UD, and some runners will prefer first-person games and some runners will actually prefer Metal Slug. And on A Story About My Uncle, the duos that we are going to look for are like the Mask and Skunkoff of the bottom half of the screen, and with the PBs in the 30s, and on the top half of the screen, Fireman and Cute Shadows around like the 32 mark. And once again, the worse your PB, the easier it is to get to PB pace during races, but also the better your PB, the better score you potentially will make. So it's Skunkoff once again in the lead, and Cute Shadow has some margins, so they will get ready and the race will start at the workshop. Nice intro for that game. It's the equivalent of the Ceres Station, but in first person for A Story About My Uncle, just slowly and surely making their way to the actual meat of the game.
Yeah, at least you're running and jumping and shooting the way that you do in the rest of the game in Super Metroid. Whereas in a game based around a grappling hook, there's not a lot of grappling in this first section. Fireman actually starting off getting hung up on the very first door. There is a bit of there's a bit of finesse to both the intro and the epilogue, in just sort of feeling out how big your shoulders are on your hitbox and making sure that you take the right lines through this workshop. So it's a very small thing, really, in the grand scheme of things. The players are getting ready to be whisked away on this teleporter that your uncle built. He thought he built something to dispose of trash, but it was actually just a teleporter, and he was just teleporting the trash, and he makes a trash world. And it's rather irresponsible, if I'm being honest, but we're going to go pay him a visit.
Yeah, it's a weird story, to be honest, like just that guy making that teleporter, using it as a garbage disposal, and at one point being like, okay, I want to see where my garbage goes, and just jump in with the garbage, and just discovers that he built a world where everything evolves way faster, so life is already there, plus there's like all this energy floating around, making all the rocks float. So almost everybody in sync right at the start of Sanctuary, probably one of the hardest level in the game, just because you start without your awesome grappling and rocket boots abilities, so the runners have to be super careful with their jump. Fireman missing the first jump like a few times, and that means the Mask and Skunkov are going to get faster there. The Mask actually is the only one who gets the fastest cycle at the start here.
Yeah, this is another weakness for Fireman. It is a strength for the Mask. And honestly, this is one of Cute Shadow's weakest games too. So off to a really strong start is Cute Shadow. But it's Fireman who is really sort of dropped back after that first couple of points. I don't know if this was like you were talking about, having trouble adjusting from one game to the next. Metal Slug and a story about my uncle. Oh, I'm not quite getting there, but he might have enough time to. Well, yeah, he's gonna make it. Okay.
Nice.
He's dropped back quite a bit here. There's a lot to this game, and there's some pretty tricky skips in particular that can go wrong that we're gonna see pretty shortly from the other players, at least. So, also, again, when it's your weaker game, you're not looking to beat everyone. You're looking to just sort of keep pace as best you can, and then look to beat them on the games where you're strong and make up that point difference. So we'll see if Fireman is now back into the groove, into the swing of things, I suppose is the better way to say it, as the players get ready for some out-of-bounds shenanigans.
So Cute Shadow made it faster than the Mask on the out of bound. The Fireman is just going to get there. Skunkov is just ahead of Fireman, but Cute Shadow is a super strong racer, to be honest. He's been with us in the UD since UD2, and his specialty is just never going for strats. It doesn't do during races, so he just practiced for the races, and it shows right now. Like, he's in the lead with the worst PB of the 4, and he's just able to get there. Fireman did not go for the out of bound, just got the regular strat, getting the cycle correctly on that moving rock, and just got there. So they're just like a few jumps behind Skunkov, and Cute Shadow already has his 2 grappling charges, which means they are going to move at an even faster pace now, but the level is not done.
2 charges also means that there's some opportunities to use your extra grapple as a sort of safety device, rather than a means of having to actually traverse the level. Most gaps after you get the second grapple are designed to require 2 grapples, so it's not often that you do have that spare to play around with and maybe save yourself if you make a bad jump. It's usually when you get the 3rd grapple or the rocket boots where those opportunities really start to open up, but there is one here and there, so that's going to be just a nice load off the player's mind, especially a player like Fireman, who after that shaky start is going to be thankful for any little bit of safety he can get. The Mask is out of, or entering the cutscene rather, to load the second area. They're done with Sanctuary now. And Cute Shadow also triggering this cutscene, so just a little bit behind the mask, heading out of Sanctuary, the first world. Skunkov just taking a moment to wait for a cycle here on these rocks. It looks like Fireman's doing the same. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. All right. Still pretty close through Sanctuary.
Skunkov did like an okay job after a tough start, but still the mask got an amazing second half of the level past Cute Shadow, and they're going to be heading to through the village first. The village is a cute short level, but with some intense skips, especially the first few jumps. But first we have to suffer through the first cutscene, and there's no way around that one. A lot of the others we are going to skip, especially the second one in the village and the one in the chasms. But before that, we have to wait for the story to roll out. Madeline is going to be our friend for the entirety of the run. She's going to hop on our back a bit later on, and she'll be just with us commentating everything we do, and she is the reason why I muted the voices in the game, because it gets super annoying super fast.
I like her. I liked having, someone there, because my character's a mute. Well, no, you have a voiceover for your character, but it's not in character. It's a you older telling the story of what's happening to your daughter. But I liked I like Maddie. So sue me. I don't like what the players are doing, getting inside her face during this part where you're forced to wait, but whatever, players are going to do what they're going to do, and they're doing a pretty good job of getting these first couple big jumps at the start of Village.
The mask got some scary setup there, but made it and did not stop, so that's just mean they're going to have like a perfect first few jumps. They got a stop in the small pebble, getting their charges back, so they didn't have to stop later on those cycles. Gets perfectly the skip here, gets to the crystal and resets back to checkpoint. Gate is keeping the third charge for the grappling hook, and now we have the full set of 3 charges, so we are going to grapple a lot more and find a small tiny spot where we can grapple on that floating rock and just get to the next checkpoint very nicely. The mask not stopping at all, has the best PB and shows why.
Yeah, we thought this was going to be a pair of races on the bottom and top of the screen, which we have a lot on speed gaming, and they're actually separate matches, but not today. They all are competing with each other. Just in terms of skill level and PB, we thought it was going to line up that way, but like you said, Cute Shadow is just so strong and consistent at getting close to that PB time in a race, whereas someone with a stronger PB will generally not match it in a race. It was your best, your literal best. After all, it is very hard to reproduce in a one-shot run, so they'll be a little bit behind that. So it's super impressive to watch Cute Shadow. It's the reason why they're competing in the finals of our August tournament today, and honestly, I think they're one of the favorites to be one of our 2 players who will qualify for the grand finals. So for now, it is the mask who is in the lead, is in the chasm section now. As you can see, it's very hard to see, particularly on the walls. And the walls are what we're really interested in right now, because we're about to get set up with a skip here. And so just feeling around in the dark, trying to find these points to grapple to get this skip. And I'm pretty sure he hit his
short
head
here. Oh, if he makes
he knew it too. He knew he needed one really good grapple, so
just resets. He's not even waiting for his character to miss the platform, just resets, which sets him back right at the beginning, behind, just ahead, of Skunkov and Cute Shadow. They are super synced together on the right part of the screen. Fireman finally gets there, and the way that level is set up is the game really wants you to grapple on certain spots, which are like light up, and the the runners really don't want to do that and just get the best spots possible to grapple onto, and that those are like the hidden rocks on the walls, and you just want to know exactly where you're going so you don't have to go all the way around the games want you to. And yeah, the mask makes it nicely on the second time and gets the safety checkpoint and the half of the level here.
Skunkov has done sort of the first half of it. Cute Shadow gets the second half. Skunkov's turn to turn this corner and hopefully land in this little alcove. He's got a lot of height, but he's out of jumps here, so he does land very nicely. That's sort of the hard stuff done for those three players now. Fireman is getting close.
Fireman got the super safety checkpoint in the after the first few jumps. We've seen a lot of fails on the first part of the skip, very few on the second half, so a lot of runners actually do not bother with that safety checkpoint. But I do understand why a runner in a final like that just would want to play it a little bit safer. Fireman knows that this is one of their weakest games, and Dumbass getting a reset here, back to the last checkpoint. They probably triggered the worm and do not want to suffer through the cutscene, so tries to get the skip on the second attempt there. But that means Cute Shadow and Skunkov passed the mask on that third level here.
It's been a back and forth race in a way that I really didn't expect between not just two but three players, the Cute Shadow, Skunkov, and the mask. Doing a good job of giving us a show, if nothing else. Fireman is still not too far behind, is just racing along the edge of that wall, looking for these grapple points in the dark. The mask and is going to be joining Cute Shadow and Skunkov, triggering the final cutscene. Just staring at this hole. Apparently, you go through that hole. I don't know how the game just kind of fades to black and then you're somewhere else. But
you can just crawl.
Use your imagination.
Yeah. And here we go. We're past the chasms on Cute Shadow's screen. Back to finally a nice open area, less claustrophobic, where you can see where you're going to. Like we can see way further, almost the end of the level here. But that means a lot of nice open jumps, a lot of ways to go to. Like the games offer multiple paths all the time, and you have to know exactly what's fastest and know exactly how to grapple onto those super far rocks. But you also have to learn exactly what's the grapple distance on everything. Cute Shadow getting some weird momentum going here, bashed his head on the rock and had to reset. The mask actually almost on pace with Cute Shadow now.
It's doing a really nice sequence of grapples off of like a tree branch, just barely. The Cute Shadow is taking a very safer approach, using a lot of one grapple to launch and then one grapple to pull safely onto a platform, land, reset, get grapples back. So with that strategy, you're always going to have at least one grapple left to save yourself, and we'll see. You can't save one for this section here that Cute Shadow is in.
Okay.
This placement looks good, so he's going to be able to land for sure. No problems. There it is.
The mask
get his
also
grapples back.
very nice. This set of jumps killed the most player in any of the 10 games. I feel like this is where the most time has been lost in the entire July tournament. Like it killed a lot of runs and single-handedly like eliminated at least 2 players. And it's scary. Cute Shadow is not going for the skip here, actually goes for the safety checkpoint, which is super smart, but it allows the mask to pass them. But the mask get the other safety checkpoint, so that means they're grappling onto the same rock at the same time. The mask barely in the lead, and Skunkov not going for the safety checkpoint either, going to catch with both of them. They're actually not taking any safety there, so they save time on both Cute Shadow and the mask, but still a little bit behind.
Fireman a little further back, still currently riding one of these fans. There are a lot of these fans in the Starhaven section, and they're moving on cycles, and with 4 spokes on them, the fact it's pretty likely that a fan blade is going to be near for you to grapple on. But when you're really pushing it, You can do some fun things like land on the fan blade, the middle part here, like the mask is trying to set up. Actually, just using it for a grapple point. The middle does not spin, so, well, it does, but very slowly. So it's very reliably going to be something you can grapple off of. And there will be opportunities for the players to actually land on it as it's spinning to refresh their grapples. And naturally, that will help out both in speed and safety if you can manage to land on it. Another thing that helps out quite a bit with this is the rocket boots that Cute Shadow has now. We just get a huge... It's not quite a double jump. It's a double boost. It's a massive boost that you get by jumping in the air. It is required to cross a lot of gaps like this one.
Ooh, Skunkoff barely saving themselves, using the rocket boots actually to bash their way downward back to the ground, which is a nice way to use the boots if you are in the air, just back to the land. But save themselves very nicely. And the mask and Cute Shadow super close together. Skunkoff is also super close to them. Actually past Cute Shadow there.
Skunkoff, actually, one of the stronger players, like we saw on when those times came up on the bottom of the screen. We expected the mask and Skunkoff to kind of pull away a little bit, but Cute Shadow has done a fantastic job of keeping pace with these two runners. Fireman probably not feeling too great after finishing last on Metal Slug and then going into these games, but when you just kind of roll two of your weaker games as the first two, that's just something you need to deal with. So he'll have some strengths later on, but for now he's just going to do his best to stick to what he practiced. Don't try to get crazy. Trying to keep up with these guys. Just do it like you drew it up. And he's doing a pretty good job of exactly that. We got some fans going on for our players on the right side of the screen.
This is an intense game for sure, especially on those final few fans. It is kind of tricky to land exactly where you want. Cute Shadow getting a
what
bit
happened
lost
to Cute Shadow?
there.
Where is he? He's lost.
Yeah, it's completely... Okay, can grapple onto that final rock. When you can grapple onto something, the crosshair just blinks a little bit, and just seeing that meant that it was going to be able to go back to safety, actually make some progress, and that was super fortunate for them. Skunkoff and the Mats getting the skip of the cutscene here by boosting above the cutscene box that would trap you if you were to touch it. But they are not stopping. I would like you to notice how well Skunkoff and the Mask are just leaping forward each time they land. Like, they know exactly their timing and they can charge their jump to have some more momentum as soon as they touch ground. And this is like what makes a difference between a 32-minute PB and a 30 minutes. And Fireman and Cute Shadow struggling a little bit with the skip, but finally they both make it on the top part of the screen.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to approach this. We saw, I thought there was two, but then Brother Main kind of showed us a third in the middle of a race. But Cute Shadow going with the safer alternative where you actually drop between the two bridges and sort of do a checkpoint. You hit a checkpoint and sort of reset, and that skips the cutscene. Or you can just fly straight over the trigger the way that the Mask and Skunkoff did. And it's just another example of Cute Shadow using those safer race strats. Well, I was going to say to their advantage, but they did fail and had to retry. So maybe not in that specific example, but it is a strategy that is working out for Cute Shadow. Has done very well to get to the finals of this August tournament, and is off to a great start so far, and is looking to continue that. Fireman and the Cute Shadow both going for a ride, as the Mask and Skunkoff are pretty much done with Starhaven. We've got to say our very long goodbyes to Maddie in this this final forced wait cutscene here.
Yeah, this is the last cutscene for that level, and just ends the level 4 here, the Starhaven, and we are going to get to the Ice Cave, the final level of the game. But the thing between Skunkov and the Mask is unreal. They got to the cutscene exactly at the same moment, and they will get off that cutscene exactly together. The Fireman and Q-Shadow are waiting for the cutscene themselves, and the time difference is consistent between PBs and what we are seeing right now, meaning no one is actually taking any edge. Fireman is going to be like a bit behind on every single games today, and tomorrow is going to have a fantastic set of games at right off the bat, like his The End Is Nigh, Inertia, Trials, and DKC are super good. DKC and Inertia especially, he is going to be the fastest potentially, and that means as long as it's not too far behind today, it's going to be great for them. But Skunkov has a lot to do today. Like, they probably do not want to go back in September and do another entire tourney back from the qualifiers to the finals to have another shot at the grand finals. So Fireman, Q-Shadow, and the Mask, this is the first time they are going to go through all that, and you know, it's probably harder on Skunkov mental compared to the other three.
Yeah, absolutely. The UD is very long, but much of it you can kind of spend at your own pace, learning the games across all these months. But you don't get to choose when you compete in these tournaments. We have, the dates are set, and you need to show up and play. So you need to be here to play, obviously, but you also need to prepare accordingly in between. And so, maybe you don't quite feel like, my Metal Slug is really, it's not there. It's something I need to work on. It might be tempting to leave that for later, but if the tournaments come and you need to put in the time and work on it, and so that sort of mental stamina can definitely wear out. So it's something that is hopefully not too much of a factor for Skunkov. Would really like to do well and qualify for grand finals in this tournament, and is honestly well poised to do so. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be probably the closest UD match we've had so far. But Skunkov does have the edge, and does have the edge in this race, currently having a very strong Ice Cave section. The skip went well. Fireman is going to have one chance to save himself.
Nicely done.
It's
just
good.
Finding those chances are kind of tricky. When something doesn't go the way you want in Story About Miracles, it can be tricky just to recover, because like in any FPS, knowing exactly where you are in the space can be kind of tricky, and here you have to grapple exactly onto something and know where top and bottom are, and know how you're going to how the grappling is going to affect your gravity, and sometimes it can get tricky. The Mask is dropping heavily frames, so we don't know where they are, but we know they started the level in sync with Skunkov, so now it's just a matter of knowing how well, seeing how well they're going to do, and that's going just to be based on their time later on the leaderboard. So let's assume that they are just in sync with Skunkov and climbing that trail. With the skip here, you want to be able to skip the long walk, but just barely land right near the tools. Very nicely done by Skunkov.
Yeah, that was a section where the game is supposed to take away your rocket boots. You fell from too high and broke them, apparently, even though you could fall from any height anywhere else in the game and they'll be fine. But we, cleverly skipped that and got to keep our rocket boots. So there's this vertical section that is, you're supposed to rely only on your grapples, and it turns out having your rocket boots for that vertical section to go vertically high very quickly sort of trivializes it. So the players just shoot straight up and then have to hit that trigger to quote-unquote repair them in order to progress. Skunkov was pretty far around that pillar looking for that little ledge. Actually, I thought he was going to land on that previous one, but he kept going. Is looking strong here in the Ice Cave section. The Mask is, he's on an equal skill level with Skunkov and was on equal pace going into the Ice Caves, but Skunkov's Ice Caves has been pretty much perfect, so would need to be the same for the Mask to have kept pace with him. And we'll be very curious to see how it shakes out. Fireman as well now just through this rocket boot section.
Touch the ground, and now we can see the long walk of shame here. Like it, yeah, is frustrated, understandably. So Cute Shadow is behind Fireman, but if he gets a better, no, just get the same one, touches the ground, has to walk, and what I like between those two players is I know Cute Shadow is way better at keeping composure. Like they were not frustrated. They did a ton of those runs, just like using the race set of mind, and knows that they just have to keep going, and it doesn't matter too much if they fail that one single little skip in the like entire UD. It doesn't matter too much if you are losing 5 seconds on one jump, and those two different mindsets is probably what favors a little bit Cute Shadow today compared to the other three. Just he knows that what matters is the next upcoming jump, the next upcoming game, and what's in the past is done. You don't have to worry about it.
And Skunkov is approaching pretty much the final stretch of the game here. Well, he's just going to boost right into the end, and he's done. There's a lot of waiting for this cutscene, but whatever. I can't help but compare to the feed that we now have for the Mask, who I was expecting to hopefully see them close to Skunkov. I'm not sure if the feed is delayed. I know the tech crew doesn't want to hear that, but I definitely prefer that to the fact that the Mask is, lost all this time.
Yeah, that would be
really
super...
far back.
I'm curious. I hope it's just like a delay, and just will probably ask them to reset their feed between the games, because if not, that means they lost like 4 minutes in the final level, which would be super weird.
I really hope it wasn't like stream went down and I need to stop playing and figure out how to get my stream back on, and that kind of ugliness. Not the kind of thing you want to influence the outcome of our race. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it is just some delay going on. But for now, Skunkov is done still. I lied when I said the previous cutscene was the last. The run is technically not over, so we do have to wait for this. Most of the gameplay is over, though. The last stretch, actually, is this sequence with Fireman and Cute Shadow both just tearing through this downward slope section where you repeatedly recharge your grapples off the crystals. He's going to be able to save himself, and Cute Shadow is going to be able to sort of make the transfer from one slope to another, is kind of the one tricky section about that finale. And now they're both taking different approaches as to where they get their sprints and rocket boosts, and make their way towards that final cave, very close on the top half of the screen, which was kind of what we expected, and we kind of expected very close on the bottom, though it's a little unclear what the situation actually is. But we will get that leaderboard up once the runs are done and see exactly what happened here.
Yeah, we do go by a runner timer, so we have like the closest and most accurate time as possible. We do not want like any stream issue or the small delay that SRL implies when you have to type .done at the end of the race. We know on some of those races, those few seconds can matter, and just like having the accurate runner timer is the what's best. But sometimes, sadly, even with all that accuracy, a runner is going to lose some time due to unfortunate death, or we do not know what happened to the Mask, and that's the worst. So let's hope it was just technical for us and did not impeach their run at all. Skunkov is going to be the first, at least on the stream, to get back to the workshop. The runners of the community took like a very weird decision not to end the run at the credits at the start of the cutscene, and we do have a small part of gameplay right at the end, so we get the entire story and gets the very emotional and nostalgia-filled epilogue of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're gonna wait for that cutscene, then you might as well get the little chunk of play at the end, which is what Skunkov's going to show us now. He's the only one moving right now, so it is going to be our main focus for now. There is a little bit on these stairs where you can get hung up on the railing and on the corners. So he's actually doing a pretty good job of whipping his camera around 90 degrees to take that corner. We have seen players actually up against the cutoff for this game, having to, slowly trudge through this workshop, knowing their seconds were counting down, actually made for some pretty tense finishes. This is not going to be that case. Everyone did quite well, all things considered, on this game, going for the box skip over here, just cutting that nice little corner. Very, very intense, high-octane gameplay to finish
he
things
bonked
off.
his shoulder.
It's all over.
Oh no, he lost at least like a frame or two. Okay, this is super weird because that final stretch of the game just shows how wide your hitbox actually is. Like, this is the only like time it matters really, and it doesn't matter too much. But the hitboxes on that game are kind of weird. Yours and the rocks and the every single object in the game has a different grappable box and a hitbox, so there are like some glitches and some tricks you can abuse, like just getting into the hitbox of an object by grappling onto it. So that's the whole idea behind the edge boost that the runners try to go for, especially the start of the chasms. You could see the runners like grazing rocks and having like some small boost. But this is like, it's, just the end for both Cute Shadow and Fireman, and it's going to be down to the optimization of the epilogue section here. Let's not get caught by the railing. Cute Shadow actually having a better section, I feel, but he's a little bit behind.
Yeah, so there's trade-offs here for speed and safety. Technically, the fastest thing to do is to walk forwards, and then 90-degree turn, and then walk forwards again. But if you're even a little bit off, then you're not going to take that. You're going to be walking into a straight wall, basically. Whereas if you kind of brush up against it, you're moving diagonally into it a little bit and losing a bit of speed, but you're making sure that you're not going to just totally stop dead. So, interesting. Little different approaches there. I think Cute Shadow actually makes up some ground with that sort of shoulder shimmy strats.
Cute Shadow gets a glitch in the cutscene there.
He's fine. I'm pretty sure.
Well, the game is considered done, but I think it got a soft lock in the cutscene. Like the guy,
end.
The end.
Literally the final step.
Or maybe just like alt tab as soon as the run was done, and we just have like the game glitching out off screen. We don't know, but it's done for all runners, and apparently I have some good news from the mask. They just like drop a ton of frames, and apparently they're just going to be fine for the ranking of the overall tourney today.
All right, so our final times are in. Our pacemaker, Brother Main, has beat out the competition, but not by much. Only 28 seconds ahead of Skunkoff, but ignore the man in first place. He's not really competing today. It is about the other four runners, and so Skunkoff is in the lead. And the mask was not, minutes back like he appeared. He was actually only 30 seconds back. So could not match this Skunkoff's super impressive Ice Caves run. Like I was saying, it would have been really interesting to watch how that played out. But that's just how it goes sometimes. Skunkoff was very hard to catch through that final section, and so the players did end up kind of pairing off according to their PBs. Following Skunkoff was the mask, and then we had a pair who were very close, Cute Shadow and Fireman, just 3 seconds apart.
They both PB'd by just interrupting you because it's incredible, but Fireman PB'd by less time than Cute Shadow. So Cute Shadow got like a better score just in virtue of a better PB. 30 seconds PB for Cute Shadow, 10 seconds PB for Fireman.
Wow. Nice player. Nice job doing that in that very tough game. We've seen players We just saw players do really well in this game, but we've seen a couple runs that really got away from some players in that game. So fantastic job. Another game where that has been the case a couple times is Cuphead. We're seeing it now. It's going to be game number 3. And it is the kind of thing where there's a good chance that everything is fine. And you don't, it's not even, it's one of the simplest games in the UD. And, expect everyone to kind of do about their PBs and that's how it goes. Or you die. And if you die, especially if you die at the end of a boss fight, you lose a huge chunk of time. It is a big swing, and it has happened a couple times in the UD. So it is definitely a big concern for the players. But that's kind of it. There's definitely small optimizations, but the big one for Cuphead is going to be don't die.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of deaths in Cuphead, especially the first, the playoffs for the July tournament. Like, everybody died. Melwes, Devil Tifa, I do not remember who else was on the feed, but everybody died. And that meant each time you die in Cuphead, you lose about a minute or a minute and a half. And it's 10 to 15 points gone, like, just bam. And the Green Matchstick, the Hildeberg, like you can die pretty much anywhere, and it's all about like consistency and still going fast, because in Cuphead, if you just spend your time dodging shots, it gets just harder and super slow. So it's all like a trade-off, and yeah, it's way more intense than anticipated, because we go just for the simple any person category. So it's an easier sailing. It's a smooth ride from start to finish. But during races, it can like get hellish pretty quickly.
Yeah, we have seen even the best players sort of fall and stumble on this game, which is kind of what you'd expect actually from a Cuphead, a game notorious for its difficulty. Turns out it's not so bad when you play on simple and you speedrun it, so that you know all the patterns and things. But it is still, there's that you died screen for the Mask, who is just kind of idling there, that you don't want to see. As we take a look at the best times, very evenly matched between Cute Shadow, the Mask, and Skunk Off. And again, it's kind of been the story for Fireman, who he's going to be the weaker of the bunch. But I promise you, he is really not that much weaker than the other players overall. There are going to be plenty of games, mostly concentrated tomorrow, in the back 5, where Fireman is going to be one of the people on top here in terms of personal best, and in some cases by kind of a wide margin. So it's a pretty rough draw to get 3 weak games all in a row. Hopefully he doesn't let it get to him, and he's able to it looks like after, like you said, doing better compared to the others, compared to their PBs in Metal Slug, and then getting a literal PB on A Story About My Uncle, it looks like it is absolutely not affecting him at all. And I fully expect him to do well as we get started with Cuphead. The racers are off at varying degrees. It looks like the Mask is maybe still going to have some of that stream delay, but that's okay, because this game has loading screens, and we don't want the loading times to affect the results. So we're going to be using in-game timers. So look at those in-game timers in the corner to compare where the runners are at based off of their PCs. They're going to drift apart a little bit here and there, and so it's definitely a little bit of a shame from our viewer perspective that there's this discrepancy, but we will be able to compare where the runners are at throughout the run, thanks to these timers.
The Mask stream is actually catching up, apparently. We got a nice reload, and Skunk Off, something happened to them, and they're just starting right now. We'll fix that, and we are going to have a break right after Cuphead for the runners to rest and just hit the reset stream button so we can have everybody in sync for the upcoming race. But as you said, Cuphead is not too bad because we have like, their in-game timer. But let's get focused on Cute Shadow there for their first boss fight. They got the spread shot. They're all going to hammer everything they have on that first potato here, and should not be too bad.
Yeah, it's not the most threatening boss. They start you off with a potato, but it's really this carrot that you need to worry about. The couple shots coming in from the side, a lot of players do end up getting hit by that. The spread does a pretty good job of letting you get in consistent damage while also shooting off a couple projectiles here and there to get rid of those carrots, and we get to see a bit of a difference in routes. Most of the players have opted for spread, but Fireman has opted for roundabout. So as you can see, it goes off to the side and loops back around, and the advantage of this is that basically if you're facing away from an enemy, you can still sort of be shooting at it, depending on, you know, a couple of factors, you know, where they're moving and things like that. But it is a big advantage in any any boss fight where you need to be moving left and right to dodge things. It is a disadvantage anywhere you can't get good usage out of your super for the most part. You can do some nice hopping back and forth, sort of. I'm trying to find it. It's not a yo-yo. It's almost like a
boomerang.
Or like a skip it that like. That you would tie on one leg and then spin and jump over with your other leg. Toy.
It's this swag star from Ninja Gaiden. If you are watching Hawkins, it's just like hopping back around, like trying to dodge your own missile, and so it hits multiple times. But yeah, it's hard to find like any equivalent, like real life equivalent, because this is very like video gamey. And like Fireman, actually, probably explains their slower PB, I think, because as you can see, the roundabout actually hits like a bit slower, and it's pretty easy to miss shots. Whereas with the spread shot, if you have to hit on any, here we can see like the super very nicely. Having a lot of hits and trying to dodge all those. Oh, got one, sadly. Got crazy. The other one. And nice.
Oh, we are not playing a story about my uncle. We're playing Cuphead. That's going to get changed in just a little bit. But yeah, we are a couple bosses in now. Goopy Legrand getting knocked out for Cute Shadow. The mask on the second phase of this fight. It's definitely a very straightforward fight. Actually getting a nice super off there. The spread super can be very tricky to use. You very often want to be pretty much inside the boss's hitbox in order to hit with all of them, and you kind of need to hit with all of them if you really want to be out-damaging your regular super gun, or finger gun rather, super. So it is a risky move for sure, but if you really want to go fast, it is your best source of damage.
Goopy Legrand is an interesting one with the spread shot. If you can keep pace, like just getting all your shots to connect, you can get a lot of damage done. Fireman is not doing such a great job with his super, so once again he's probably losing time to the spread shot strats. And Cute Shadow and Hildeberg, one of the harder bosses, I'd say, on that run. You want to take some intentional hits to get the best hits to connect on the with your missile shots. But apparently everybody like moved to the secondary strat, which is just get one of those multiple supers to connect, and then like charge your entire super EX, the red bomb, to deal a ton of damage on the second part of the fight. And yeah, Fireman is dodging the shot here just to keep some HP, because, you know, being at just 1 HP can be super scary.
Yeah, and this is one of the longer fights, especially in the simple category where some phases get skipped. This is, if you die at the end of the Hildeberg fight, you lose more time than in most. Cute Shadow is not going to succumb to that fate. Is going to be the first one to defeat her with a 520 time or so, a 504 for the mask on that knockout. Fireman pretty far along Skunkoff as well. Skunkoff is, appears to be quite behind, but remember, take a look at those timers in the bottom right to see what the real story is. Once you look at their in-game times, I think you'll see that Skunkoff actually be in the lead, though it's going to be close. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. The Mask is doing a great job. Kichado is losing some time playing it safe, I feel, and just trying to go for not dying and having relative fast fights. This one is where the roundabout usually shines. You have like a super hard time to get all your spread shots to connect, and you cannot use at all your spread shot super. So you just go for the regular shot, blue tier there, and this is not the best. So the roundabout can get faster times there by quite a margin, and we'll see how well Fireman does. But Fireman is quite far behind. They're just playing super safe. They have a 2-minute worst PB, and they're just like going for finishing the game as well as they know how to. And I just hope they don't die, so the time difference doesn't increase.
Skunkoff now into Cagney Carnation is our leader, I think, by about 13 seconds, if I remember correctly. Doing a pretty good job on Cagney here as Cute Shadow is done and moving on. The Mask as well.
Ooh.
Skunkoff takes a hit, but he's pretty far along. This fight is almost over. He drops down and takes another hit.
They have to before the missiles connect, because those are quite tough to dodge. But Bippy the Clown, one of the hardest fights in that run. I'd say it's hard to have like a good perfect shots to connect, but you can have those extra supers to connect in between phases. Bippy the Clown hitbox is actually hidden under the floor, and you can get some shots to get there. The balloon clown head here doesn't hate you when you touch it, so it's the perfect opportunity to have your spread shot supers to connect entirely, get those 8 missiles to connect and to deal damage. And oh wow, Cute Shadow taking a hit there. He has to be careful.
Yeah, he did a really good job landing those 3 spread supers on Bippy the Clown's hitbox. Those supers are not easy to land. You don't get hit, but it is very hard to get up, right up into the chin to make sure that even your bottom projectile is still hitting his hitbox way up there. And so that hit worried me just a little bit, but he was totally fine and in control. Skunkoff now also doing Bippy the Clown, and the Mask is actually going to Baroness von Bonbon first. So this is a route change that is very, very new, that not many players have incorporated. I think we saw Brother Main do it.
Yeah.
No, wait. Maybe I'm thinking. Maybe
no, it was last week, and it was the Mask. Actually, I think the Mask is the only one doing that. But we've seen it only once, and that it's just changing boss order, because apparently going that way is just faster on the overworld map.
Oh, and he dies to Baroness von Bonbon. He was about halfway through the fight, so that is, I don't know, 50 seconds maybe lost. Very big chunk of time lost there. It's going to be a little unclear where the players are at. I know it's kind of hard to follow with the stream delay and the loading times and the in-game timers and the different routes, but we'll do our best to call this race and let you know where things are at. And I'll let you know right now, with that death, the Mask is going to be pretty far back. Fireman has been pretty far back as well, just through not as clean execution. I think that might put the Mask in last place. It's going to be pretty close between the two of them.
Yeah, it is unfortunate for the Mask. There are 5 points behind Skunkoff in the overall leaderboard for that tourney, and they have to be like top 2, and those points mean that Cute Shadow has the nice opportunity to catch up with them, gets to that top 2 spot after 3 games, and once again, it's not done until the 10 games are played, but the better you do, the earlier, the easier it gets, I'd say, at least mentally. But we have like the longer and the harder games yet to come. Shovel Knight is in just after Spectrable today, and tomorrow we have like a nice set with DKC, Trials 2, The End Is Nigh, Inertia, and Eye of Sorrow. So it's still a long road before calling the top 2 spots.
The Mask with a very safe but still clutch finish was down to 1 health on Baroness von Bonbon. Started playing from a distance to make sure that he didn't die again and gets that kill. Fireman now done with Beppy the Clown, and Cute Shadow done with Jimmy as Skunkov is getting into the final phase of the fight now. Cute Shadow's then moving on to Baroness von Bonbon. Wally Warbles for the Mask. Fireman joining Skunkov in the Jimmy the Great fight. Skunkov's just about done here with this super, and just a couple more shots. There it is, finds the knockout.
Skunkov is making very good progress there, way in the lead. It's hard to compare with him and the Mask, but the Mask dying. On Baroness von Bonbon, it's pretty easy to call that they're behind now. Fireman is really struggling, still on Jimmy the Great at 11 minutes, has to go a long way to catch up with them, and he's probably going to be like 20 points behind after Cuphead. It's going to be tough for them to catch up today, but once again, tomorrow is their day with some of their best game. But Skunkov is going just to have like the same story with Trials 2 on the second game tomorrow. It's going to be tough. But back to Cuphead, Baroness von Bonbon, I'd say, is just the first phase with those different enemies, and they get there at random. So sometimes they can get you because you don't expect that, or that one especially. Having to go back and forth, having trouble to get their spread shot to connect when they're not on the platform. And the final phase here, Skunkov taking an unfortunate hit at the start.
Yeah, also not getting his super through all the way on the boss. So he doesn't like playing in this situation. He had the 1 health left. I wasn't sure. He was dropping down below, didn't want to try to stay on that candy platform. And that's why. It is very hard to deal with those clouds. When there's all 3 of them, they move in a very predictable manner, but once you kill 1 or 2, the pattern that they move at becomes a lot less clear. It becomes very hard to dodge. And he went for just 1 big jump over the whole thing and didn't quite get it. So a very punishing death for Skunkov is going to cost him a lot of time. If he didn't, he would have been basically right there with Cute Shadow. Maybe a second or 2 ahead. It's hard to say. I'm estimating a little bit, but he was right there. And now is very much not. Taking another hit on this disgusting candy corn looking monster, and is going to have to rally a little bit here. Really can't afford to die again. Well, maybe he could. He is very good, and there are some strong games for him coming up later on in the UD. He went with a super point blank on that cloud. That cloud would have killed him, but the super took it out, and the boss as well. So clutch finish for Skunkov.
Yeah, now they really have to get back into the game, get there ready for Wally Wobbles. But Cute Shadow already on the green matchstick. The current matchstick is not the one that killed the most players, but I find it to be one of the scariest, because I had like a lot of troubles killing it on the first time. Oh, Cute Shadow missing a super, like he switched to the spread shot, and that was a mistake, I'm pretty sure. You do not want to use the spread shot on that fight, which means going in that round is going to cost you a little bit. And the second phase here, you have to dodge all those flamey soldiers that jump at you, and it can get tricky.
Yeah, most players save their supers for this phase, so they can just empty, all 5 supers into Grim Matchstick, and then it's really not too much more damage to finish him off. But Cute Shadow was using his supers on the first phase, so I was wondering how that second phase was going to go, and then it went pretty much perfectly. No one jumped at him. He was able to get nice and close. He probably, rivaled most people's full super round 2 without the supers, just based off of, his I mean, a bit of good luck with the patterns, letting him, get clouds where he can be nice and close and get full damage out of the spread. No jumping flames, but still very good execution to take advantage of that nice pattern. Skunkoff was pretty low on Wally Warbles, but does fine. The knockout needs that to sort of salvage this Cuphead run, but Cute Shadow is really running away with it here.
Yeah, they're not stopping at all. This fight should not be a problem. The spread shot, it's pretty easy to get everything to deal damage, as long as on the second phase here you can dodge the random attacks. Sometimes you get the Triangle of Doom, and sometimes you get the giant ball balloon that follows you around, but it's quite easy, to be honest, to dodge those shots, and usually you will have some room to take an extra hit if you are, if you get caught. But Cute Shadow will finish that fight super quickly. Oh, takes a hit there, but here we go. On the final phase, you just get up there and you will kill the boss before the missiles get you.
Thankfully, Cute Shadow can afford to take that hit. I never really thought about what's going on with the Rumor Honeybottom. Like she's just a wizard, I guess. She has a magic wand and casts spells. And,
the story and the lore of Cuphead is super intricate. It's
yeah, check out my YouTube series for more information. But for now, we'll talk about speedrun. Skunkoff is on the second phase of Grim Matchstick, is looking to get close to hit those spread shots, but not too close, and fires off the super for the KO. The Mask is having a pretty clean phase 1, and did fire off 1 super, so not going to have the full 5 going into the second phase, but it's Cute Shadow who is still way out in front here on the Sally stage play fight, further out than they appear due to the, stream delay and the loading times and whatnot. But I would say they are about, 50 seconds, maybe a minute ahead of even the second closest competitor of the bunch. The Mask did get that KO on Grim Matchstick, and Fireman now is...
I'm pretty sure they died on Wally Warbles, because they were at the final phase when the Cute Shadow got into Oni, and then we're still at the final phase when Cute Shadow actually beat the boss, so that doesn't bode well for Fireman starting the Grim Matchstick at 17 minutes there.
Yeah, the cutoff for Cuphead, it's, what, 22?
No, the cutoff is 30 minutes. The
30,
200 points is 22. It's
That's
one of
what
the
okay.
Yeah, it's one of the nicest games, like point wise. You can get up to 210 in races pretty easily, and just making the 190 is pretty straightforward. Just playing through the game like pretty casually and doing better and better and eventually not dying will get you like the 175. So it is one of the best games for UT6 to get into speedrunning. The simple difficulty makes it like super nice. So if you want to try it out, actually, like anybody in chat just want to get, if you have Cuphead and just want to try speedrunning it a little bit, the simple difficulty makes it super nice.
Roundabout, not doing too much for Fireman here. He's getting a couple opportunities to get on a cloud low enough for these roundabouts to connect, but they're just looping just a little bit too high. So he is going to go ahead and switch to the regular finger guns, but this is time lost that he really is not looking for here. He's very low to those flames, but he does get the KO, so he is going to move on. Cute Shadow finding the KO on what is effectively the final boss of Simple Mode and this run. The Phantom Express onto the final phase now. No hitbox, so able to jump up and get those spread supers. They're not easy to land, though. The head moves back and forth. You need to time your jumps correctly. Cute Shadow does. And
nope,
to finish it off here. Well, that's how it goes, but he doesn't need it. He's already done with the fight. It's going to be definitely sub 20 and not quite sub 19. So still a strong run for Cute Shadow on Cuphead, and is probably going to jump out into first place here. He was pretty close to Skunkoff. We'll take a look at the leaderboard when it's all said and done, I suppose.
Skunkoff dodging barely those mechanical mice, and takes a hit still. I do hope they still have that one final HP they want for the final phase of Sony stage play here, because you want to just take the big wave to the chin and not spend the time to dodge it, because to dodge that wave you have to break the meteor and get the pink star and just dive into it to get a bigger jump above the big wave. But they made good work of that. The Mask getting to the start of Sony stage play as Fireman is struggling with the Queen Bee here. And yeah, this is a slow fight. And once again, like on paper, the roundabout seems to do just fine, but during races, it feels like the spread shot is always going to be better.
Yeah, it's there are some people who swear by the roundabout, and in some ways it is safer, but we have seen the best race performances, at least in the UD, come from players using this spread shot, whether that's because the better players use spread, or they're the better players because they use spread. I'm not sure, but that has been the correlation, at least so far. Skunk Off onto the final phase now, is charged up a lot of supers, is going to be ready to let them loose again, looking for that hitbox to come low. Looks like he's doing a really good job. One more. No, he doesn't need it. I forgot. He is going to be able to do these diagonal supers, though. Some players opt for these diagonal shots, and some opt to wait and get up close. But yes, that is a very, very strong finish to the Phantom Express.
So you can see Kichado got a final time of 19:20, and Skunkov is going to look at 20 on the dot or so. And the Mask is going to be about 20 seconds behind, so that's a lot of time lost. And Fireman is going to be up to 2 minutes or 3 minutes behind the Mask, and that's a lot of time lost, and it's going to be very hard to catch up today.
The Mask moving on to the final phase of the boss of the run. Jumped a little early and then jumped a little late because he jumped early, but does find the second and third hits, so he is going to be down one super, and seems reluctant to move the cart a little bit here, so he is going to stand in the middle and then retreat, but he doesn't even need it. The boss is already dead. So his final time is going to be just shy of 21 minutes, I think. So we're seeing a 40-second gap between Cute Shadow and Skunk Off, and then about a minute gap between Skunk Off and the Mask. And then it remains to be seen what kind of gap we'll see between the Mask and Fireman. But the runners have really kind of spread out here on Cuphead, and I would have thought this would have been quite close between Cute Shadow, the Mask, and Skunk Off. At least they are all... geez, how close are I think it's 3 points? Yeah, 3 points apart on the leaderboard according to their PBs. So it's those deaths will do that to you, unfortunately. That's just the way Cuphead goes. Cute Shadow got the deathless run, and the others not so much. Fireman now moving on to the second phase.
I'm still impressed with Cute Shadow because they just not with Cute Shadow exactly. Like, they didn't die and did not so well compared to the other when they were just like on par PB wise. So I'm surprised actually. I thought they would do better, and I don't know exactly what happened. If they played like super safe, Fireman going for the intentional hit and just stays in the lightning and just kill the boss before they can get another hit. So they will get a final time of 23, like 18 or 19. You can add like 20 seconds to the Phantom Express death to get the final time, and it's an interesting finish. Skunk Off and the Mask going faster overall, but getting like a death each that costs a lot of time, both on Baroness van Bonbon. So yeah, that boss is the real UD runner killer.
So there is the finish for Fireman. Has been playing from behind on all three of these games, according to just the way the personal bests of these players lineup, and you know it means that you're not really you expect to see Fireman behind the other players, but what's important is how close he is, and you can get an idea for what kind of time he maybe should have got looking at their PBs, and we saw that Metal Slug actually went better than expected for Fireman. Literal PB in a story about my uncle. So was doing a really good job of sort of cutting his losses, stemming the bleeding a little bit on these weaker games, but not the case for Cuphead. This one got away from him a little bit. We can see now has dropped 50 points back behind the mask due to this, what is this, 2 minutes about here between the mask and Fireman. So not great. We can see Brother Main had a really great run. I think it was actually a PB he mentioned in chat.
Yeah, it's in A Story About Miracle and Cuphead, those 2 times are race PBs. So, like, clearly the months off, like just being able to grind at their own pace, did very well for them. And that's why they are like 15 points ahead after 3 games of Skunkov. Skunkov doing really great with 20 on the dot here. And yeah, he's now 7 points ahead of Q-Shadow, and Q-Shadow caught up to the Mask, and the Mask is third with 500 points. So this is a super close race between Skunkov, Q-Shadow, and the Mask, and Fireman will have to work quite a lot to catch up to the top 2, Skunkov and Q-Shadow there at 515 and 508.
Yeah, we are going to see... particularly in Inertia and DKC, Fireman will very likely make up, maybe not 50 points, but pretty close, just based off of PBs. So definitely, it looks pretty bad right now, but take my word for it that Fireman is far from out of it at this point. Though we're going to be out of it for a little bit, we are going to take our first break. It's going to be about 10 minutes. The other 2 games that they ran earlier today were A Story About My Uncle and Metal Slug. And after the break, we'll be seeing Spectra Ball and then the dreaded Shovel Knight that most of these players, I'm sure, are quite worried about. It is a game that no one has really got to that strong high level that some of the other players way at the top of the leaderboard have got to in this game. This is a weak point for sure for pretty much every player to some degree competing today, and so it's going to be scary. They're looking for that 100 points more than anything, but you'll have to wait for this break, so stay tuned.
So just a 10 minutes break. The runners are, getting ready on Spectra Ball, just getting whatever they need to finish those. That stream 5 games in a row can be super tough, and tomorrow we are going to do the 5 others. So take care of yourself. We've been live for 100 minutes, and in 10 minutes we are going to go back for 2 extra games. Spectra Ball and Shovel Knight going your way. And we're back with the UD6 August Grand Final. Well, not Grand Final, just the regular old finals. You actually have a spot for the 2 spots actually for the Grand Finals that will happen later today. We are on that blinking little spot, and Cute Shadow, Damask, Skunkoff, and Fireman are in the race to get to those Grand Finals that will happen on the 13th and 14th of October. How do you feel, Mythical?
I knew Fireman was gonna drop back on these 3 games. Was a bit of a weakness for them. I was hoping to see this be 30 points back or 25 points back, but it's 50 right now after that Cuphead. So Fireman's got some work to do. But I am pleasantly surprised to see it so close between Skunkoff, Cute Shadow, and the Mask. I'm glad that Cute Shadow isn't running away with it. I actually did really well compared to the others in the final turn, getting down from top 8 to top 4. There's a big reason for that, in that Cute Shadow was the only player to finish Shovel Knight and pick up more than a 0 there. So that will be a big question mark coming up in a little bit, but that's going to be after game number 4, Spectra Ball. So this is a game where the players are quite evenly matched, except for the Mask, who has a 20-ish point lead over the other 3. So this is an opportunity for the Mask to start to challenge Skunkoff and Cute Shadow, who are currently sitting in number 1 and number 2. Disregard the brother main at the top of the leaderboard is already qualified and competing today to provide sort of like a pace, a top runner pace that you can expect to see in something like the Grand Finals that the players are competing to qualify for today. But in order to do that, they're going to have to play Spectra Ball.
Yeah, Spectra Ball is that weird ball game with some weird physics glitches, and you just have to make your way through whatever the game throws at you. A lot of skips, it's super short, and sadly, being super short means if you do fail anything, it's going to be super costly, so a lot of runners do actually fear that game. But I really wanted to point out that in the leaderboard, the rankings so far, Brother Main is actually doing super well, and that shows how good it is to be already qualified. And that means the runners today are, if they want to get to the Grand Finals or the Ultimate Finals, have a way better chance to get there if they do qualify today. So that means during all September and October, they will have like 6 entire weeks or 7 weeks to just go at their own pace, practice whatever they want, the rhythm they want, and what Brother Main did during the August tournament actually did work super well for them, getting to the Story About Miracle and Cuphead best race times. So Skunkoff really needs that. I feel like they were into the July tournament finals. They really need to get there to have the choice of their practice, and if they don't, they will have to go through the September tournament again, and that's going to be tough. So once again, only the 2 fastest between those 4 will get there. The Mask has the better Spectra Ball PB, as you can see there. Everybody else is almost evenly matched around the 10-minute mark. Skunkoff has a nice little 15 seconds edge over Fireman and Cute Shadow, but anything can happen during Spectra Ball.
Yeah, 15 seconds can feel like 15 minutes in Spectra Ball, especially when every point is just 3 seconds, and you can get stuck on certain parts. I mean, and sometimes you can get stuck on the geometry in ways that you really wish was not a thing. But the kind of stuck I'm thinking of is the stuck where you go for some jump or trick and you don't get it, and you go back to the checkpoint, and then you try it again and you don't get it again, and you're back to that checkpoint again, and it can start to get harder and harder mentally to get over that block. But for now, literally getting over this block with this waterfall, the players just kind of hurtling themselves into it, and with a well-timed jump, they're able to get the bounce they need to get on top of that thing. Pretty nice opening for the players. The first level's really not too hard. The game does have a nice difficulty ramp to it as the players ramp up and around this corkscrew-looking thing, doing their best to sort of cut corners and shave frames. The mask is the player with the big personal best advantage over the others, but we're not going to get to see it because of this, there's some stream delay or whatnot going on. Is definitely not as far behind as he appears.
They
and
started
we'll get
like
those
25 seconds behind, so should be fine. They will help to damper a little bit the edge they have PB wise. Fireman is actually done first place here with the level 1. Level 2 is super short, but there is like one tough trick to get.
Skunk Up didn't quite get into the end of the first level there.
I had to reset to the checkpoint. Finally makes it. Those, like, getting to the end is always way trickier than it looks. Like, you have that one little spot you have to land on, and it's not, like, forgiving at all, so it can be tricky to get there. Fireman going for the old regular boost, being a little bit ahead of Kichedo, and Kichedo gets the jump on top of the pyramid here first. That means they will get to the end in first place. And the physics in that game doesn't make any sense, by the way.
Making these pyramid jumps look easy. You just, you walk up into it and you jump, and then you just kind of roll up and it's easy. But try it yourself and you'll see that just, oh, the mask. Oh, not quite getting it. This is going to drop him back a little bit. And the mask is the player we expected to see doing the best here on Spectre Ball, but we've seen even the best of the best in Spectre Ball with a record holder at the time anyway. Devil Tifa has posted a quite poor race time in one of our UD events. Spectre Ball is a game that can just kind of get away from you in a really bad way. This volcanic crater level going very well for all the players. There's a really big skip, so they're pretty much done with it already, moving on to Snowy Peaks. And Snowy Peaks is where most players can really run into trouble in this game.
Yeah, that first checkpoint with that momentum-based series of jump here can get tricky, but Kichedo makes a quick work of it, gets to checkpoint nicely, and will just keep on going with that squared screw type thing. You have to climb up there. There is no way to skip that one, so they will just suffer and be kinda like wary of what's happening. It's pretty easy to just go too fast and get stuck on those corners. So Kichedo just taking his time, getting to the checkpoint here, and this is the final checkpoint. You want to get to the end, and there are multiple ways to get there. The fastest one would be to go straight past that thing and jump, but Kichedo is going to go the regular way, not going for the fastest skip, and it's just going to slowly make their way toward the end. Fireman got a weird angle and is actually touching the checkpoint here, and will make their way back and trying to go for that jump. So Fireman is playing super safe, but makes the jump at the end.
We have seen players rely on that route Cute Shadow took as a backup because this was another tough section where just one thing or another would get them. But we're seeing really not much troubles in Spectre Ball overall. We saw, the mask had got hung up on the pyramid jump once, but none of the really nasty stuff has really happened as we got the players now into Sky Ruins. Fireman went for the really gutsy stuff and didn't quite get it. Is restarting from this checkpoint because he's trying to do something just so. I think he had the speed boost, and we're not allowing the speed boost continue from checkpoint.
Well, we actually do allow it now.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been like discussions, and at the start we did not allow or forbid it, just because we did not know how that worked. And now that there is like a skip in the level 2, which is like super cool to see in PB attempts and super risky in races. We decided to allow it. But obviously no one is actually using it on purpose because it doesn't matter at all during races. It's all about consistency, and I feel like those runners show that they practice the game in race settings. Compared to what we've seen during July, they are all doing like great. Not going like knowing their limits. They just go for what they know exactly to do correctly. And Fireman got to some extra checkpoint just to be safe. And I feel like they know the game better.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate this safer approach to Spectra Ball that the players have gone for, because you've seen even the strongest players just get beaten by some of the stuff in this game when you go all out, and to some degree it can just be like just not the smart play, not worth the risk to go for that stuff. So I don't know if this is these particular players feeling one way or another about things, or if this is part of a larger trend of where people are at with this game. They've started to maybe respect it a little more in a race. I'm not sure, but it's still quite close between the Mask, Cute Shadow, Skunk Off, Fireman, not too far behind as well. I think there's only about maybe 20 seconds at most between the players, still quite close into the Towering Mountain, and it's the second to last level, so we're pretty far along here.
Yeah, this is I'd say the hardest level, except for Space Construct. Final Jump, this one is kind of tricky. There are multiple routes to it. You have some choices to make, and depending on your skill level and your confidence, it can get tricky. Those little jumps Fireman is doing right now can get super difficult, and the final few sections and few jumps Cute Shadow is currently in allowed just the Mask to take the lead. Right now, Skunk Off is right behind them with Cute Shadow, and Fireman is right behind them. So yeah, 20 seconds between Fireman in last position and the Mask in first place. The Mask going for the regular old route and trying to get a jump that I've never seen work before, but just trying to go for it was quite nice. And this is the slowest route, the slower route compared to what we've seen from Mel West during the July tournament. Mel West did choose not to go for the August tournament, by the way. Only Skunk Off of the two finalists that did not make it was there. So Mel West is keeping his training secret, and we'll see more of them, probably either during the September tournament or the Last Chance tournament later in October.
Not so secret, though, because they've uploaded a ton of PBs in the meantime to actually, put a huge gap between Mel West and Devil Tifa on the leaderboard. We're number 1 and number 2 separated by just a couple points for a long time, but Mel West put 50 points between them with a series of personal bests. So is not competing in this tournament, but is going to be a huge threat and honestly a favorite in future tournaments. Fireman not quite getting the height. Getting set back quite a ways.
Yeah. They are going for that new route
but...
here, making some different jumps, and yeah, nice landing here. So we've seen like a lot of different stuff on that Towering Mountain level, but Fireman is almost done, as Cute Shadow is almost done right before Skunk Off, but the Mask in first place, showing why they have the best PB, going for Space Construct. There is a very important skip here they will not get and have to go on that squiggly line here, very nicely knowing exactly their momentum and just having no issue whatsoever making the jumps.
Really clean. That is a tough section, but it's not as tough as the finale that the Mask is getting set up for here. Expect to see a lot of this particular elevator. This is the first thing you see once you restart from this particular checkpoint, and the reason why is for this reason here.
Time.
Wow, the exit from the loop looks pretty good. Maybe too good.
No! Oh, wow.
He's overshot
this
it, but
just
he lands
barely
on the back half. I think he's a little unsure where he's looking for this room.
Oh,
this room has a checkpoint in it.
Checkpoint room, very nice. They know exactly what they were doing here. Super clean jump, not getting the fastest strat, but getting into that small section, get the jump done, and we'll get to the end just before the 10-minute mark.
Nice run from the Mask. That is maybe the first time I've seen a first try space construct. No reset, right? In the
Yeah,
entire run, I
no,
think it.
just pure perfect space construct there, getting overshot a little bit on the jump, but knew exactly where to go. Cute Shadow is finally making that jump, get the checkpoint, reset
Oh, nice.
immediately, knowing exactly what they are doing. Skunkoff is barely making it a different strat, the other checkpoint in the tower, and we'll get there eventually. Fireman, though, is stuck, trying to make their way on top here, and it's super close. It was... supposedly we should have had a 1 minute difference between first and last, and it's going to be even less than that apparently.
And very close. You know, the three players we thought were going to be together are together, almost finishing
Wow.
at the same time. Cute Shadow and Fireman. Man, and then what was the final times? They must have been, you know, under 11 minutes or just
Yeah.
over 10. Incredible times, incredible Spectre Ball from
Wow.
all four players.
And
I can't wait to see this leaderboard.
yeah, I just spoiled myself, and it is actually way closer to what we could have expected from PBs than sub. Like, the only issue is that Brother Main just killed everything with 227 points, 8 minutes and 37 minutes on Spectral, took a huge lead, but Dumbass confirmed their hedge on that game. That's over 20 points taken from Skunkoff. So the Mass takes comfortably the second place here. Skunkoff right behind them at 703. Cute Shadow just shy of 8 points from the 700. And Fireman is actually falling even further behind at only 633.
Yeah, it's not too much further behind, but, you know, even a little bit starts to count for a lot when you were already down by 50. Has some really strong games coming up in the final 5, which we will be seeing tomorrow in Donkey Kong Country and Inertia. Look for this gap to close by quite a bit on those 2 games tomorrow, but you know, you still need to play pretty much your best in those 2 games in order to earn those points, and then you also need to keep pace with the others through some of these other games. So it's going to be a big ask for Fireman. I mean, that was a really good Spectre Ball. It's hard to get that sub 11 time in a race and then feel that it wasn't good enough, you know. But it definitely was a strong performance overall. Brother Main making them look maybe not quite as strong due to his fantastic 838. I didn't realize actually that he is now the leader in Spectre Ball on the leaderboards with a whopping 251 points, representing a time of 725. Again, reminder, Brother Main has already qualified, is just playing as sort of a pacemaker. The top 1 and 2 qualifiers between the remaining 4 players are ones we're going to be focusing on, and we're going to focus on them as they play Shovel Knight. This is it's a fantastic game. I think for many people it needs no introduction. But what you should know in the context of the UD is that it is a very, very hard speedrun, very long, lots to learn for the players, very punishing if you die, and our cutoff for the game is a little bit on the aggressive side as well. So this is a game that some players have not completed in races before this cutoff. Many players actually to get into the top 4 that we're seeing today, they had to compete last weekend, and 3 of our top 4 did not finish Shovel Knight in time. So 100 points for finishing under the cutoff, 0 for finishing over the cutoff. A difference of a couple seconds could be the difference between moving on to grand finals and not. So this is a huge deal.
Shovel Knight brings a lot of questions to the table and just shows what the UD is currently. Yeah, like from UD2 to UD6, the difficulty just ramped up, and we asked a lot to the runners to be like super strong at 10 games. The competition got super intense, and everybody has to put a lot of time in learning and practicing the game, and Shovel Knight like is high point to that. Like, it's a super dense, intense game. The cutoff is at 1 hour, and being consistent sub 1 hour when you have to practice 10 other game is super tough, and anyone that's able to beat the game in under an hour is just doing fantastic already, and that's not enough in the UD. So UD6 just got super tough, and he's asking a lot to those runners, and maybe this is the last season the difficulty is so high because we cannot get harder than that. It's maybe like with a easier time, easier cutoff that would have been easier to the runners, or maybe with like less of DKC or Eye of Sorrow on the side. But yeah, right now Shovel Knight is clearly one of the harder game, and only Cute Shadow beat it last time, so let's see how well they do, and hopefully everybody beats it on time.
Yeah, I would, just looking at these numbers, I wouldn't really say this is a strength or a weakness for any particular runner. There's only 24 points separating the Mask and Cute Shadow. The Mask 111, Cute Shadow 135. So that's pretty close in the grand scheme of things. But the difference is that, assuming that you're not going to match your personal best in a race, you're going to be a little bit behind that. You start to subtract from those times, and you get really close to this 1 hour cutoff. So the likelihood of getting the 100 points goes way up when you're at, say, the 110 point mark or the 130 point mark. That 20 points counts for so much more in this situation than it would in most other situations. So while they are fairly evenly matched in skill level, and I expect this particular race to actually be quite close, in terms of what it does to the points on the leaderboard, this could turn out to be a huge strength for Cute Shadow, and a bit of a weakness for the Mask. Has a 111, a time of 58:19 is the personal best, and can only be, a minute 40 off of that best time to get under that hour mark and get those 100 points that you pretty much need. I suppose they could be made up with phenomenal back five and maybe some mistakes from a lot of your other opponents, but realistically, you're going to need to finish Shovel Knight under an hour if you want to qualify for Grand Finals.
Well, the only way would be like just
or
nobody or just maybe the one, just Cute Shadow finishes it on time, and then you have some margin to go back. Fireman is going for the zip here, but actually takes a lot of time to set it up, loses some HP, and I feel like it's not even going to be worth it for them, but and not even getting it, so they should like move on. Having to reset the dragon positioning, they should just go back to the regular way, and yeah, having a lot of trouble. We'll die here. This is super costly, and once again, that shows how much we ask to the runners. The runners feel like they have to go for the harder zip and everything if they want to make it on time, and I should maybe be apologizing a little bit. We ask a bit too much in UD6, but at least for the viewers that brings a very high skill level show, which is always nice to see here, as we have like a lot of very high skill runners always on speed gaming. But the Mask, Cute Shadow, and Skunkoff are done with the Black Knight first fight. Fireman finally gets the zip, and they will have like 30 to 45 seconds to make up on the upcoming levels.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think Fireman is trying to push himself to beat this cutoff. Is kind of backed up against the wall, and it feels like they need to do these things to give themselves the advantage they need, and it's kind of backfired here a little bit. I'm not sure if that will change Fireman's plans for how they want to approach this race. I guess we'll have to see. Black Knight fight, however, the cleanup goes really well, and like you said, second try on the bubble wrap was pretty much perfect, so of course it goes perfectly the second time around. Why couldn't it have gone that way the first time? But here we are, and the runners are now moving on to Pridemoor Keep, and they are all very close to each other, pretty much on the same screen, seeing almost the same screen transition between Skunkoff and the Mask, and Fireman trailing by about 45 seconds, maybe a little more. it's there's still a lot of Shovel Knight left to play, so it's definitely far from over. I wanted to see, get a sense of the gold situation. I thought Fireman might be worried since they died, but
they actually even more gold. Yeah,
yeah.
I do not know how that happened, but probably took some time to form a little bit. And what route would you recommend 58 PB runner to go for in a race?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is whatever you practiced.
Yeah,
right. Don't do something you didn't practice. But if you could magically choose to have practiced all along one or the other, I really like that Flame Wand route. I think it's so much easier to use than the Chaos Orb. They need to be placed correctly, and even when they're bouncing around, they're distracting. And yeah, I like the Flame Wand and the 10 health and the, you just all
okay, so Flame Wand, 10 health, but Conjurer's Coat?
That coat. I don't know about that coat. Yes, I'll say yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, the extra magic, not having to worry about managing your magic can be a load off your mind. That's important. That's where I'd be.
That's interesting. I would personally, like my route when I practiced and I got to 58 was Flame Wand, but few HP and no Conjurer's Coat, no Charge Shovel. But with the Anchor. Because I feel like the Charge Shovel, the Charge Slash is best on Propeller Knight, but if you get to the Anchor, you don't need it. So I do not know what the runners are going to do. So far it's the same for everybody, obviously. But it's hard to tell. The safer the route, the slower it is, and it shows especially on Shovel Knight. But the runners are being very aggressive with their checkpoint breaking strats, because that is the best way to get a lot of money very fast. Obviously it's risky, especially with Fireman on those books here. Can get scary, but makes a clean sweep past that screen. Q-Shadow is already done with the King fight, got a nice fight, but actually it's Damask and Skunkoff who got slow fight with the celebration of a bad fight.
Yeah, the confetti. You really don't want to see. They have a name for it in the community, like something of shame or something. I can't remember, but yeah, it's a bit of a meme. You don't want to see that confetti. If you're really good, you can actually beat the slash attack that King Knight does. That Fireman might actually. Yeah, nice fight from Fireman. That's the kind of play he needs to get back in this race. Cute Shadow's going to be the first one into the Lich Yard, followed very closely behind by Skunkoff and the Mask. The Lich Yard, I feel like it's kind of in the same. The levels are divided into tiers, and this is technically in the same tier as Pridemoor Keep, but I feel like it's actually a difficulty jump the way that the others are. But that's okay because the music is so good that you don't mind.
It's certainly the level that killed the most like new runners at that point in practice, and like a lot of races and a lot of attempts have passed, and all the Lich Yard is very practiced for all those runners, so I would not be too worried, except on that final black screen where if you go for the fastest strat it can be very difficult to know exactly where you are. Skunkoff and the Mask almost on the same screen, Q-Shadow a little bit in the lead, taking their time here to be sure they don't jump into those spikes. Those ceiling spikes are super tricky to wrap your head around the fact that they will kill you in just one hit.
Into some of these dark sections now that Cute Shadow's in, where you're intended to kind of wait for the lightning to see where you're supposed to go next. Obviously speedrunners aren't going to wait around for that, so they've memorized the levels. But that's not the easiest thing to do when you don't have a lot of time to devote to learning to speedrun the game. You have to pick your battles in the UD, and so memorization is definitely one of the harder things for players to do in this competition. So any level that is memorization based, we'll see some blackout stuff in Donkey Kong Country, for example, can be a little scary. Thankfully the Lich Yard's it's pretty straightforward for most of the time.
Cute Shadow taking a few setbacks here. I'm super scared for that level now. Just like those runners could not have practiced the 10 games in the past week, so you just need to be barely de-rust and to head your way towards the finals like that, where we are going to do the 10 games in just a weekend. And sometimes, you know, you will be a little bit rusty getting into a game, and I've seen a few mistakes on Cute Shadow screen that is clearly not done last week, so I'm not sure. But Skunkov is taking their time through that level. The mask is already done. It's very close between all those players, and the boss fights are what matters the most in that speedrun, and Cute Shadow so far is having an okay fight. Little bit of RNG here, but gets the nice good luck spot.
Able to get 4 hits there in the corner. Very hard to find hits on Spectre Knight, so those opportunities to damage boost and go to work in the corner is really what you want to see, and does a nice job of cleaning up that fight. The mask also almost caught up here. It just needs 2 more hits.
Yeah, they missed the shots.
Struggling to find them, actually. Okay, there we go.
They got a super clean fight, but sadly struggled to find the 2 final shots. But if they were like 2 hits shy of the best fight possible. Sadly, Fireman does not get the good luck spawn from Spectre Knight, so he's going to be even more behind, further behind now. Has to struggle with getting some few more hits, but gets there and actually passes Skunkov. Skunkov is having a lot of trouble and actually died. And they're so far behind.
The checkpoints. Oh my god! And that is a massive death.
Yeah, this is the worst death almost possible in this entire speedrun, because now he is like a minute behind. He has the entire boss fight to do all over again. And if they die, they lose all that money. Like, they dropped over 1,800. So, it's going to be tough.
This is terrifying for Skunkov. In this situation, when you drop a minute in Shovel Knight, you can't afford to really go slow anymore. So you need to hurry, but you also can't afford to die, or you lose that gold. We were talking earlier about what route would you do. Well, I would do this, and the players have their route in mind, and it requires a certain amount of gold to buy the items at the times they want. And gold, you know, it's a little hard to come by in this game. There's lots of it around, but it takes way too much time to pick it all up. So it is quite limited and very valuable. You know, I mean, it is gold after all, but it is actually valuable in this video game, and it's a huge concern. Missing out on 1,800 gold, I think, would mean you just have to skip something. Basically, I guess there are some side areas
like
you could visit,
upgrade?
But yeah, it's a big time loss, and even having to worry about what would I do in that situation is got to be something that, you know, you really don't want to be thinking about. You'd rather just be thinking about playing the game. So he's doing a really good job on the comeback here, but is going to be playing from behind by quite a bit. And not only that, but still has to do this boss fight. Like, after that death, you're going to be thinking about it again second time around. So we'll see how this goes. As Lost City now starting for Cute Shadow and the Mask, and Fireman is chowing down on some stuff. There's that gold there, so he wants to beat this boss and pick up the gold.
He's not rushing for the gold though, which is smart. He just goes for the fight and knows that eventually they'll be able to pick it up. So yeah, here we go, the first gold bag. They did not go for the fast kill, but knew that they had only like a 50% chance to get the correct spawn anyway. And yeah, they have to worry about that gold, but still. But that death is probably why Shovel Knight is one of the most depressing game for me ever, because if you die, it's so bad, and only like 1 HP away, has to dodge that. He's going to have another jump above the tide to go for, and he's going to get the two hits.
Gets it.
Not
Gold?
getting the
move?
Final gold. No, you cannot move. But it's not too bad, because they got like a lot of money back on their way through the Lich Yard, so they should be on par with what they need. We'll just take a quick peek at the gold they have at the end of at the start of the next level. But like, as you can see, all the runners are around like 3,500 starting the Lost City. But still, yeah, they are 90 seconds behind now, and yeah, the dying in Shovel Knight is super depressing. It's just like you lost all your time, all your money, and there's that incentive to break the checkpoint, but when you die, you lose all and even more, and it's tough.
All right, so we'll see how things go for Skunkoff. The Lost City is going well for the other players so far. Cute Shadow is the first one to pick up the Dust Knuckles, the mask not too far behind. This is a really cool item that, I mean, the big thing about it is that it moves you forwards when you use it. So it's an attacking item that lets you attack without slowing down. It also has this neat property of sort of magnetizing onto things, so that can be used in a number of ways. And particularly, I think, in boss fights. It definitely has some platforming uses, but in boss fights it lets you sort of latch onto weak points.
Oh, wow.
Cutting it pretty close there, my
Yeah,
friend.
they went for the faster strat where you just like break the block and dust knuckle onto the green blob that jellifies the lava, and missed it, but knew they missed it and just went back, you know, like Metal Slug style, when you lose a platform and you just like press the other direction hoping to make it, and barely, like, you do not have so much air control in Shovel Knight, and it's there obviously, but you have like very little left and right momentum compared to how fast you fall, and yeah, it got scary a little bit, but they're fine getting to the Mole Knight fight, as Cute Shadow is almost done with it, getting a very nice hits with the Chaos Orb, and yeah, they're done.
Nice Dust Knuckle finish. The Chaos Orb moves at the same speed on the final phase, that one with the sparks there. The Chaos Orb will move at the same speed as Mole Knight, so if you put that inside his hitbox, it'll follow him all the way over to one side and back and rack up a ton of hits. It is very hard to time.
No,
but Fireman slips off the edge. He was going for the Beatles skip there at the end. You can use the Dust Knuckle to magnetize onto those blocks. And
they were aiming for the final step from that sense there, and just went a little bit too far. They were like just inching their way and towards the ledge, and just like full pressed on the D-pad, and had it. That's unfortunate. Getting the nice skip here, and yeah, they're not going for the skip there, so just waiting for the green orb to drip, and yeah, sadly, that means Cute Shadow and the Mask are starting the Explodatorium with a nice lead there.
I think I would like to revise my route that I would follow to include break no checkpoints, and whatever was necessary to accommodate that. Because that has been... that's hurt Skunkoff real bad, and it just hurt Fireman pretty bad here in Lost City. But Cute Shadow and the Mask are doing Mask at that really close call. But into the Explodatorium, if these guys just have a clean run, like, they'll get there, right? Their PBs are good enough that they will get there. They don't need to do some fantastic new personal best. They just need some solid play that, you know, which is it's a bigger ask than you'd think. Playing solid through the entire, you know, close to an hour of Shovel Knight is quite a difficult task, but that's what they are tasked with right now. Mole Knight down, 4 Firemen, has plenty of health, so must have been a convincing fight that I missed as I was watching this Explodatorium go by for Cute Shadow and the Mask. We're still breaking checkpoints, so we're still going for it here.
The Mask is taking their time, because that section, we all know, can kill you very easily. Those little spots, yeah, they're really taking their time to kill all the slime, and just trying not to take as few hits as possible, even though they have like these 6 health, and Cute Shadow is not stopping for anything, so they're making a very convincing progress. What I'm thinking right now is that if the Mask and Cute Shadow finish, and Fireman and Skunkoff just fall shy of that 1 hour mark, it's going to be almost impossible for them to come back to top 2. But, you know, there is still a chance, so we'll see how well that goes. And the Survivor is not done for them as Skunkov breaks the crumbling blocks there and just falls into the lava. It's not too far behind, but Skunkov took 2 big deaths there.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that he cannot afford. After that Lich Yard, you can still finish under an hour with the PB that he's got, you know, if he just plays well. But it's those mistakes that he just made that he absolutely cannot afford to make in this situation. Is going to need something special, I think, from here on out to, you know, really get in under this hour mark. It's a long run, so it's a little hard to say, but it's really not looking good for him right now. He's collected his money, at least, now that he's back and on track. King Shadow is into the Plague Knight fight. He's got lots of health, which is good, because it's very easy to suddenly not have a lot of health in this fight. Chaos Orb's also doing a lot of work. It's not easy to hit Plague Knight with anything as he jumps around, but Chaos Orbs especially. So it's good that he found those hits, killing him at the top of the screen for a nice swag finish, but a very nice performance in the run so far for King Shadow.
Fireman collecting money bags. That's not good.
No.
So yeah, that's where the mask was playing super carefully, and that explains why. You know what? My ideal route, you do not take the Dust Knuckles, because so far it's just like killing more than saving time, and it costs money, so it means that you have to break more checkpoints to buy them, and I really feel like they're not that worth it. Obviously, if you want to go for the best time possible, Dust Knuckles are super good, but so far it's a trade half the runners should not have taken, maybe.
They're also, you know, pretty hard to use from an execution standpoint to really get the most out of them. Particularly on boss fights, there's a lot of, like, you know, left-right shenanigans that you go left-right, and you back and forth, and the timing on them, the way they jerk you forward, they're just kind of hard to use. So a lot of players end up not getting the most out of them in fights anyway. So, you know, that's something I definitely did not think of as even a possibility. But now that I am thinking about it, I think I am liking your suggestion more and more. But players do have the Dust Knuckles. That is something they've practiced for, so they are going to pick them up and play with them as best they can. For now, it's Cute Shadow who is playing the best of the bunch, but the mask is really close behind here in the Iron Whale.
Fireman having a good second half of the Explodatorian after that died, going for the boss fight here. And the Iron Well is where the game finally gets a little bit easier, because you are finally at kind of full stuff. You have your Chaos Orb, Dust Knuckle, 6 HP, you have your Conjurer's Coat on Cute Shadow's end, so they have a lot of mana to work with, and finally the game kind of gets easier. Yeah. And also, once again, like, suggesting routes and saying that it would be easier or better to go with set or setting is just good for us commentators, but because for runner, the best route, as you said, is whatever you practice. So changing on the go, depending on how you feel like, or is not a good idea. So they are doing their best with what they've practiced and what they know, and surely they will get there eventually.
Yeah, I as a viewer love the idea of a speedrun changing to adapt a situation that arises from a competition. I think it's the biggest difference between having a race or an event like this and just doing speedruns for a new PB. So I love that kind of play, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense when you just don't have the practice to do something you're not familiar with. Nice little skip here. No, not quite for Cute Shadow. Very tricky, but is pulled quite far ahead of the mask. Just some cleaner play in an earlier section, and I think is probably going to pull even further away on this fish, because he had a fantastic anglerfish fight, and the mask is not. Needs a couple more hits here. You want to get him down before he goes to that other side of the screen. You can see he was 5 hits away.
That's a lot.
So yeah, that's not the greatest fish, but he had a good cleanup afterwards, so is still resuming this chase after Cute Shadow, who is the strongest of the bunch in Shovel Knight, and is also seems to be just the strongest, most consistent racer of the bunch, and those two things combined have led to this advantage Cute Shadow has right now.
In the UD, there are so many races going on that the runners actually have to make their choice at some point. But usually once you've decided what's the best route for you throughout the season, you will stick to it and adjust very little to it. But there is like some adjustment to make when you are learning like 10 games or actually grinding them or racing them all at once. And I feel like that's one of the issues Melwest has in the UD, is that they're just going for best grind time possible, and they usually it hurts them a little bit in races, so that's why there's so much favorite on paper, and when we get to the races they're not that far ahead. But yeah, so for Cute Shadow is that far ahead, killing Treasure Knight very early, as Skunkoff is barely fighting Plague Knight here, killing them in a few hits, but and that's a long time behind.
It really is. There's the level, obviously, that he is ahead. There's also a shopping trip, which is pretty lengthy as well. Added together, it's hard to say exactly where Skunkoff is in terms of their pace. That 100-point mark, that hour mark, is kind of the thing that everyone is concerned about. Mm-hmm. The difference between 100 points and 0 points. 100 points cannot be made up through good execution, right? It's beyond that point.
Well, they could make like 50 points on trials alone, so it's still possible technically, but it's very unlikely, yeah.
I feel like even then you're still relying on some kind of misperformance from your opponents in some capacity. You're at their mercy to screw up at least a little bit. That is just the difference we're looking at here. But you're right. It's definitely not outside the realm of possibility. So, but it's not where you want to be. So the players are going to do their best here to finish Shovel Knight. They are pretty close in terms of PB to this hour mark, so they need to play quite close to their PBs in order to get there. Almost got into that pit, but did manage to save himself. There is a couple opportunities in some of these vertical sections to not die in the flying machine. It does mean you fall back down, and sometimes you have to climb it back up, and that's its own special brand of this sucks, but it's not a death, so is going to be able to keep on trucking and is going to be quite happy about that. Flying machine, definitely one of the harder levels of the bunch.
Yeah, it has a lot of moving parts, a lot of pits, a lot of the wind auto-scroller, and just the wind mechanic in any game kind of is hard to deal with. And the flying machine is a long one, and you want to be sure you have enough money to get the dagger, but Cute Shadow has exactly what they need, so they'll be just fine at above 41, almost 4200 actually. They're taking the checkpoint here, which is absolutely smart, because the flying machine, as you said, one of the hardest levels, so just getting that way up and back to get enough momentum to get down there. You have to fight the fans that push you upward, and finally gets that best movement upgrade you can hope for. They'll be able to fly just for a second there, and that's going to be very, very useful. The mask is not too far behind, and Fireman is almost in the flying machine as well, so they're making very, very good progress.
The mask dies.
No, has to start
in
all
the flying
over
machine.
again.
He jumped.
They have a ton of money.
High. Wow, they skipped a shopping trip.
Yeah,
I guess
they
haven't done it yet. They don't have the Conjurer's Coat. They don't have health. They don't have anything. So they probably want that gold. The more gold you have, the more is up for grabs when you die. Love for grabs is a weird
Maybe
way of putting
they're
it. The more you
skipping-
lose and have to earn.
Maybe they're skipping the conscious quote actually because it's a race and still went for the same checkpoints breaks. But yeah, I would be surprised if they don't go for no, just dies again trying to grab their money, and it's going to just go downhill from there because they have to do it all over again, which means Fireman passed them, Skunkov dies in the iron well. This is all. It's a train wreck at that point for at least 3 of the runners. Cute Shadow is going to have a very nice time with their ranking if they're the only one to beat that game on time.
Yeah, we might be seeing a repeat of last weekend. Was it, or was it the weekend before? It was last weekend.
Yeah.
Cute Shadow, the only player to finish of these 4 under that cutoff, and it's I don't want to call it yet, so I won't. But the odds are quite good that that Cute Shadow is going to be the one to come away with this, and the others are not. Okay,
Ooh, that's save.
That's sort of by design, though, with this route, I think. You take a weight so that if you miss it, the wind is there. There are some more aggressive strats you can do in that room where the wind will not be there to save you if that happens. But that was the case for Cute Shadow. Going to be moving on to the Propeller Knight. Remember that the same thing that's happened to Skunkov and the Mask and Fireman, these tragic deaths, can just as easily happen to Cute Shadow at any point. And we could see... you know, maybe no one finished. I don't know, but it's looking really good for Cute Shadow right now. Actually,
it's looking good for them. But I'm looking just at the time. We are just beating Propeller Knight at 31 minutes, and that's on the slower side of what you want. Like you'd want to be out of the maybe Clockwork Tower by 32 or 33 if you want to have like a very solid pace. And they're playing safe. Cute Shadow, like on Cuphead, is going to be a bit safer than the other runners. Fireman losing some time here. And yeah, it's always very good to play safe and just not dying, as Cute Shadow does right now. But just a single death on the boss rush would seal the deal for pretty much anyone at that point.
I got to look at where Skunkov died on the run back, and he almost repeated the exact same thing, so I got a pretty good idea of how it went down, I assume anyway, of just this enemy that comes in from behind next to the anchor section, but he was able to hold on and is now heading into the Treasure Knight fight. We saw Cute Shadow's Treasure Knight fight was fantastic, but he dies in the clock tower.
Ooh,
Where's
wow.
the checkpoint? It's pretty far back there, so that is a big time loss. Fantastic Treasure Knight fight for Skunkov, Fireman, and the Mask still trucking through this flying machine. But Cute Shadow is, you know...
You don't want to let that happen at all. You want to be sure that you're making progress if you're playing that safe. Once again, they're doing whatever they can, and it's probably one of the hardest UD games and UD point system ever, but it's there. You have to beat it. A lot of players are doing it. He's losing all his money and dies again on the same spot. Only 30k left. They won the mobile gear absolutely, so now they have to farm a little bit for money. Or is it 3k only for the mobile gear? I feel like it's maybe 14.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Okay, good. No problem.
But it is still a problem that he died twice and lost all that time. It's still on pace. You know, it is on pace, but is much closer to not on pace than they were before. And now you're thinking about it. You're thinking about how this run was going so well, and then I died in this kind of weird place. I don't think I've seen anyone die there in any past races, let alone twice.
I've died there,
that is,
to be honest.
Well, I've died everywhere, so but I hold the bar a little higher for our esteemed competition, and you know, things are not going well for anyone in the, well, I don't know, things were going fantastic for Cute Shadow, really. Maybe great. Things were going great.
Half HP. Is there waiting
Now I
with
would
their
say
charge
good.
slash? Oh, not landing the charge slash. Here they do. Getting the high up few hits. Fireman, oh
Pogo's
wow!
okay.
Okay.
He's dropping down.
Nice.
He's panicking a little bit. The left-right wiggles.
It's way more scary when you have 1.5 HP, when you have the Conjurer's Coat, because usually you cannot die. Anything will do just 1 full heart max, but when you have the Conjurer's Coat, it's 1.5 max, and that can get super scary super quickly. Okay, Kid Shadow is still making progress though, so Kid Shadow has a nice like margin of error to get to sub-hour, but it's way smaller than what it was before. Fireman actually making good progress since they died on Lost City. They did not die since, and they just, you know, making good progress. The mask is almost done with the Fleeing Machine, but clearly Fleeing Machine and a Clockwork Tower killed a lot of time took a lot of time for all players.
The mask, rather than going for a charge slash into Pogo, waited on one side to go for multiple Pogos, much easier on the execution side of things. But you do give up a little bit of damage. It's only getting 1 hit for each of these cycles here. It's looking for 1 more hit. There it is. It's done with this scary, scary state. Skunkoff is just now dipping down to get the Propeller Dagger. 35.5 minutes coming up on the Propeller Dagger is really not the pace that you want to be on.
Ideally, once again, you'd be done with the Clockwork Tower by right now. And
oh my goodness! What a weird death to take for Skunkoff. He gets the Propeller Dagger.
They didn't take the checkpoint right before right after the mini boss, so they have to do it all over again. Once again, Skunkoff with a PB of 57 minutes should be well able to beat that on time, but their Shovel Knight time PB was actually a long time ago. I'm just not even finding it on the submission tab. When was it? Maybe it was just like when we announced the game. Shovel Knight, where is it? Yeah, it is a long time ago. For the 5707 by Skunkoff was on the 2nd of May.
Wow, that is over 3 months back now. Obviously, Skunkoff is, you know, derusted a little bit. Has competed and played Shovel Knight and done well for himself. But that is not the case today. Dying to the mini-boss is just standing at the checkpoint in a moment of despair, perhaps. I'm not sure. Maybe just trying to figure out, like, can I even do this still? I think at this point the answer is no. Skunkoff is not going to finish Shovel Knight. And again, another death. At this point, he just needs to... Well, this is the final game for today. If there was a game after this, I would say maybe even just make sure that you're okay mentally for that game, then get caught up, you know, stressing out about this game. But it is the final game for today, so he will have a day to gather his composure after what I can only call a bit of a meltdown here in Shovel Knight.
Yeah, it's going to be okay for them, as what we can see, a lot of runners are struggling. So he's not going to feel alone struggling with Shovel Knight when the other players just beat the game in 50 minutes. But they all know very well that first to get to those grand finals, they have to get better at Shovel Knight. Even if they're qualifying without it today, it's going to be super tough by then in October. On the 13th and 14th of October, they will have to be able to beat that game on time, and even with a better time than their PB. So Shovel Knight is still going to have to be practiced a lot, and it's just super difficult to see that you're not just there yet. 3 months into the UD6, like it's a tough game. It's probably has said in chat like the most difficult game in any UD ever, and yeah, it's maybe probably going to stay true, as I promised. Next UD is going to be way easier than that. This is way too brutal for a lot of runners, and still, they're making progress. Q-Shadow in the stranded ship, keeping on going. Like Fireman done with the Clockwork
have
Tower.
this death here on this screen. But the checkpoint, you know, he did just miss the checkpoint, but the checkpoints are also pretty close together here, so it wasn't the worst death. Also wasn't the worst death for the Mask. Died in the clock tower right after the checkpoint on that screen with the mobile gear ride. Missed a block and then tried to jump and hit the block in a way that didn't quite get him there, so did have to... Oh, okay, we're dropping down. I keep forgetting that the cropping is a little difficult. Okay, yep, the propeller dagger saved. It is the way that the propeller dagger will like bounce off a wall and kind of keep you at the same height if you keep doing it. There's this temptation that like if I do it enough, I will get myself out of this jam, and like very rarely does it actually do that. There's like, you know, the wind and the propeller that we're seeing with Skunk Off.
It's more a curse than a blessing in a lot of situations.
Yeah. There's a lot of knockback on enemies and stuff that you really wish you didn't get when you use the propeller dagger, but it can be used to save yourself. Like I was so sure I was going to be able to watch Skunk Off. He's going to use the dagger on the wall. He's going to stall for the wind, and he's going to get it. It's going to be great, and he missed the input, dropped too low to the bottom of the screen, and died. That or he ran out of magic. I wasn't sure, but either way. It is another death for Skunk Off.
It's getting tough on Skunk Off. He took like a big break on the respawn and has to keep his composure. It is a good opportunity to practice a little bit Shovel Knight, but it's not the best case scenario at all. Either for a race or just practicing the game, you want to go at your own pace when you're practicing something, and right now he knows he doesn't have a choice, so... Once again, this is super tough, but it's super tough for everybody. Apparently, even Brothermain in chat, he's having trouble. He's breaking his race PB streak. PB is got race PBs on Storybout Munkle, Cuphead, and Spectra Ball, but took the time during the Shovel Knight race to tell us that it was not going so great. So it's okay. Everybody is having a hard time, and it's going to not to matter too much, probably. For the tourney we are having today.
Maybe. I think Q-Shadow is kind of still there at the chance of getting under the cutoff, and then I think we could be just looking at, well, Q-Shadow finishes first then. But it's looking pretty grim for the other three, so, you know, as much as you don't want to see players struggle, if only one person finishes, then it does mean that the other three are on a level playing field for the second spot in Grand Finals. So it would not sort of put the writing on the wall for the whole tournament. And it gets even better if Q-Shadow also doesn't finish in time. I don't want to root for anyone to fail, but that fact does remain the case. Fireman into the Polar Night fight. KSO's really good there.
If Fireman is the only one to finish, which is super unlikely, just he is on pace to finish on time, but if no, Q-Shadow, how did you die there? Being propelled right before the checkpoint by that Plague Knight enemy. Oh wow, that sucks. And we've seen them use the propeller dagger just to be able to save them, but it did not do anything at all for them, and just delayed the inevitable. And they died, sadly. But yeah, as I was saying, Fireman being the only one that would beat the game on time would be pretty great for them and for the overall tourney, because they are over 80 points behind the Mask, and they would take those 100 points. Like, that's what they need, but it's probably not going to what's happening for them today. Q-Shadow is still on pace. Is going to not bother with those money bags because they don't need money anymore. And wow, this is a tough race.
This is a tough game. That's just the way it goes. In the UD sometimes, the players were too good through all the other seasons that the admins just kind of kept pushing the players a little more and a little more, and this season they got served up Shovel Knight, and so they're doing their best to deal with this very difficult game in a short amount of time. And we've seen players have a lot of success with Shovel Knight in past races. We've seen a couple cases where this kind of thing that we're seeing now has happened to one or another. This is the first time it's been across the board. This level of misplay. Oh, that was really scary. There was a ton of spikes on the playing field. The worst part about the Polar Knight fight are those spikes, and unable to find the safe spot there. So he's going to retry this fight.
They will barely get 15 minutes to beat the Enchantress Castle and the tower, and it's going to be crazy hard. I don't think they have the time to make it. Fireman got the 10 HP, and they're still making progress. Cute Shadow is struggling with the Jawans there, but finally makes it to the Black Knight refight. But they only have 6 HP, and with the way the race is going, I'm kind of scared for the boss rush, actually. Cute Fireman, yeah, trying to play it safe there.
Definitely is a thing that every Shovel Knight player is concerned about. Especially if you go with the riskier strats. Basically all of the risky safe strats revolving around whether or not you get the Conjurer's Coat and whether or not, how much health you get, is almost all geared towards this boss rush that comes up in Tower of Fate 3. It is just so demanding on your execution, and it is just so easy to get hit and get chipped away.
Skunkov taking a death again here.
So yeah, he's basically out of it. He's competing now, just for because we're watching him, so he wants us to he wants to do his best for our sake, but for his own, he's maybe just trying to work out some things here, try to figure out, what exactly am I doing wrong that's not going so well. There's value to be learned from trying to play your best in this difficult situation. So even if his tournament prospects are not good for this Shovel Knight run, he can still get something out of it by continuing here.
I have that weird Spectrable vibe where during the month of July, Spectrable went super bad for a lot of people, and people were just going for grind strat on Spectrable, and that was not working. And I feel like Shovel Knight, for what we're seeing today, a lot of runners are going for the more aggressive strats and not killing enough the dangerous enemies that would get you. Oh, Kucher barely making it on that platform. He was stuck behind it. You want to be in front of it if you want to be safe there, but makes it. And yeah, Skunkov dying again here. And what you want to do on that screen, if you want to be safe, that's super slow, but you would want to kill that fairy enemy. And just not taking any chance to die there. And obviously, that's probably not what you want to do in if you're grinding a PB. But if you are able to sacrifice the 5 seconds it takes just to be safe, I would say it's super worth it.
Yeah, maybe players will reevaluate kind of the way they did for Spectre Ball. What it means to race Shovel Knight in this context of this particular Ultimate Decathlon competition that they are in. Struggling to find the last few hits on the Black Knight. Nice charge slash Fireman, finishing off, doing his best to close things out. He's got less than 12 minutes for Tower of Fates 2 and 3, Boss Rush, Enchantress Fight. That Boss Rush is so long. Even though it looks like the players, they're at the end of the game and there's still 10 minutes left. It's really, it's going to be hard. I'm not familiar enough with the exact numbers to know what kind of level of play we need to see from these players to pull off the comeback here, but it's definitely pretty hard. Cute Shadows now into the boss rush, starting with Polar Knight here. He always comes early, one of the first 3, those instant death spikes that you really don't want to touch, as we saw from the mask. Taking a
He's
lot of damage.
getting a good fight here, taking a lot of damage, but he's
Okay.
already done. By the way, mad props to Skunka for keeping on going. It's super hard, and a lot of the chat is impressed with their tenacity, and I totally agree. It's crazy that they still find the strength to keep on going, and so yeah, big like mad props to them. It's good practice, I'd say, and maybe we will have to reevaluate the difficulty in here, like just to be able to beat on the game in under an hour, because as Brother Main is saying in chat, even if to be able to beat the game in sub-hour, I was suggesting to go slower and safer, but to get the sub-hour mark, you have to be aggressive at some point. And that's actually like kind of bad thing for the UD. So it's getting a bit too hard, and I totally understand runners struggling. But Cute Shadow is making very good progress. That's 50 minutes in the boss rush, and it's going pretty well for them, so they should have no problem to get the 100 points there.
Nice job getting Wool Knight before he digs down and out of reach for a little bit. Skipping a cycle there into the Treasure Knight fight. This went really well. First time around, Chaos Orb does wonders on this fight, especially if Treasure Knight happens to move in just such a way as to back up into your orb after you've already thrown it, so a pretty solid fight from Cute Shadow. Looking for 4 more. Propeller Knight fight here. It's going with this nice charge slash into regular slash. When the boss is in their iframes, they also don't hit you as well, so you end up with this sort of duel with Propeller Knight that a lot of players were hesitant to do, but Cute Shadow standing their ground, getting that Propeller Knight down onto King Knight. I think this fight's a little harder in this boss rush than it is in the main room, and it's pretty much the same room, but I guess your positions may be a little different, but there's just such a flow to this fight. With getting your slash cancels bouncing off King Knight as he comes close to you, getting those double pogos and things, it's hard to get into that flow, I find. But a really strong King Knight fight from Cute Shadow. Moving on to Spectre, is almost done with this boss rush, and is, after some pretty scary deaths, is still looking well positioned to finish under this hour mark.
Yeah, they actually like made a pretty convincing run overall. Actually, I think without their deaths, they would be on PB pace by quite a margin. Cute Shadow's PB is actually super good on Shovel Knight. They are at 54-37 and not too far behind right now, beating the boss rush around the 52 minutes mark. It's super great. Awesome boss rush. Very, very nice job. Not being too scary. Only 6 HP compared to the 10 of Fireman and the Mask. And Fireman is also on good pace, actually. Maybe even PB pace. 57 is their time to beat. And in 2 minutes, if everything goes well, they should be done with the boss rush, leaving them about 2.5 minutes for the final level. So it looks better than we maybe made it look during the entirety of the commentary right now.
I wasn't sure. I tended to go with the deaths and subtract from there.
Yeah.
But it's also important to add all the things that did go well for these players. And they were going for some aggressive stuff, and when you get the aggressive stuff, that saves you time. So it does look like that Fireman's got a good chance of getting under that cutoff. It's going to be close. Like, cannot afford to die here, for example. Has to do a clean boss fight. King Knight fight is going pretty well here. Oh, I got away from him a little bit, looking for that final hit.
Oh no, the confettis. But
right.
He's going to have a nice Spectre plus confettis fight here. Okay, it's make for a less grim fight against the Grim Reaper here. Spectre Knight has a weird flow to it on the boss rush because you are not sure what you are going to have as patterns. It's less consistent than the first encounter. And Cute Shadow on the Enchantress here. Having not such a fantastic start, but it's okay, they're doing great. 54 minutes in, just having to beat those two final forms.
Gets the holes and totally closed up here.
Yeah, we totally
the mask starting the boss rush as well.
Yeah, it's close for them, but maybe they can make it. Actually, I should like pull the reverse commentary course we've done during the entirety of the run, and just say that they don't have the time to beat it in under 1 hour, because that works well apparently for the runners. As Cute Shadow is getting to the final fight here, 54 minutes and 50 seconds into the run.
Got pretty aggressive at the end of that fight, knew he had the health to do what he needed to do, and found those last few hits. Moving on to the second phase, as Fireman is almost done with the boss rush. Of course, one of the most annoying fights is right there at the end, staring him in the face with that ridiculous Plague Doctor beak mask thing. He's got a lot of health, and he's got a health refill in the middle of the room when he needs it. So I think he's not going to have any problems finishing this out. As Enchantress 2.
Missing the hits there. Cute Shadow is going to have to wait for another cycle and before the Enchantress stomps at them. Yeah, oh, missing again, but yeah, getting a nice couple of hits. Going to have the best cycle here. Missing the head, sadly, he's going to have to wait for the second stomp and gets it there. Gets nice hits. Going to have to hit that dagger at some point. Getting to a cycle we rarely see here.
This is awkward, pretty hard to deal with, and he couldn't.
How?
He took a full hit, a full heart of damage.
Conjurer's Coat deals way more damage, and oh wow, that's super unfortunate. They were like just in it, just had to make that final hit, and that's the worst. Wow, that's totally unfair.
That was an incredibly hard situation to get out of. The placement of the holes and the projectiles and where he was on the screen, getting out of that would have been something special. Couldn't quite find it.
Come on,
second try here, and the important thing is just keep your composure here in this situation. You've got a lot of minutes left to finish this out. Only one hole now on the battlefield to worry about, and Shovel Knight!
Oh my God, kills him!
He blocked him with the shield that you were talking about, the knockback on the propeller dagger. That's a thing. That is a thing.
Like, this is like... He's done. He's not even moving. He's good. Like, once again, experimented runners know how to get back on their feet, keeping their composure. I've said that during a story about my uncle. Cute Shadow is super experienced in races, and it shows right now. Just getting back to it. Doesn't matter what happened before. Just keeping on going. It takes a hit there, unfortunately.
He's getting up the height from the
he's having the worst patterns. What is that?
Okay.
Kills it?
Could finish it right here.
Okay.
It does. 57:35 going to be the final time, giving us a bit of a scare at the end, but getting it done. Cute Shadow is going to get on the leaderboard with over 100 points. And you know what? If Fireman, if the Mask, if they both do as well, those points are going to matter, count towards progress going forwards with the remaining 5 games. If only Cute Shadow and Fireman finish Shovel Knight, it's going to be looking like they'll probably be our 2 qualifiers for Grand Finals. There's still 5 games left to play, but...
It's going to be tough for sure for Skunkoff and the Mask having to work for a lot on the 5 next games. We are going to have 5 other games tomorrow, obviously, and Trials is super good for Skunkoff, and Fireman is not going to have such a lead, but Cute Shadow is going to look very, very nicely on top of there. Even Brother Main stopped their run, not able to get to sub. Our Fireman can make it, and he's going to be super pleased, killing the Enchantress within 59 minutes barely, and it's just great. The mask, they are right there, past the boss rush on the mobile gear, getting to the Enchantress at the 5:59 minutes mark. It's almost impossible to get that done in less than a minute, but they will go for it.
Maybe there's some stream delay or something. We know the mask has had some troubles with that, so maybe he's a little closer to this, further along than he is.
They
I'm not
had
sure.
like
We'll
such
see.
a good first cycle. Only one block was
Could
gone.
jump down there and finish
No.
her off down
No.
below. Don't get crazy
Don't
though,
get
perhaps.
crazy. Yeah, okay, having like the big swoops, because the Enchantress just having less HP means that they have a larger box of blocks rushing to Shovel Knight, but no problem. The mask getting to the second cycle, just keep on going, just beat stream delay. Oh, come on, they can make it. Shield Knight
I'm
falls
not
faster.
Sure where they're actually at. The timer is gonna click and say the time is up. I think we're probably, because of the stream issues,
I
keep
wanna
watching.
know. Yeah,
We are gonna keep watching.
I don't care, time's up, but I want to see the mask finishing. That game was so brutal. They deserve that. Just even if the time is over 60 minutes, they did such a fantastic job keeping it up, knowing that they struggled and the Enchantress deserved to be killed there. Okay,
All right,
having a
good
nice
first
phase.
Shield Knight tried to block him a little bit on that one.
Shield Knight is the worst, but yeah, very nice speed kill. He's going to stop, and yeah, sadly, I don't know. I'm not sure. We have to wait for the submission, but yeah, I'm torn. Like, it's not even that good to be so close to the 60 minutes, and 60 minutes is a fantastic time on Shovel Knight. Yeah, I'm bummed. Like, really, they all worked very hard on those 10 games, and they deserve the points.
It's yeah, it's tough. It's hard to when that stuff happens and we all just watch that Shovel Knight race. It's easy to forget about just how well they did in the previous 4 games. We were seeing PBs from players, and the close competition. Remember Spectro Ball, when everyone finished within like 10-20 seconds of each other? We were all riding high. Like, that still happened. That's still these same players, and that's where they're at. And we can see now that Fireman and Cute Shadow are the only two to finish Shovel Knight. Brother Main included, our pace car runner top player, also succumbed to Shovel Knight. So, this is it's even at the top. This game can get you. So, picking up the 100 points is going to be Fireman and Cute Shadow. Though we can see I guess it is possible to make up 100 points through execution, because Brother Main is still second place. Just through a phenomenal Spectre Ball in Cuphead and a story about my uncle and Metal Slug, compared to Fireman. I don't know if the other players are at that level that they can catch Fireman, but it's 29 points between the Mask and Fireman.
Skunkov has a nice shot, to be honest. He's going to have a nice day tomorrow, with Trials 2 being his best game. Shovel Knight was like, he had no race time on Shovel Knight, and still won't, but still he has 1600 points in race PBs. That means like he could get very, very good time. Trials 2 should be able to smash everything out like completely. The end is nigh. Is race PB is actual PB, so he can totally match or even beat that. Inertia is going to be a tough spot for them, but every harder game for them is done. Metal Slug, Shovel Knight, a story about my uncle and Cuphead were very good for them. But tomorrow, the only real downside for Skunkov is DKC. So they're going to start behind tomorrow, and then they're going to be able to catch up. It is scary, it is worrisome, but Fireman is done with day one on chat, saying he's super happy with how that went. On third place, well, second in top 2 within all four competitors. And Brother Main, as you said, he should be our front runners, just showing how it's done, and he's actually in second spot. Cute Shadow is going to feel very, very good with himself today.
Yeah, earned it, absolutely. Solid, consistent play that they've become known for ever since they started racing. It counts for so much in this format. With this limited time that you have across all these different games, all these different skill sets. It's just an incredible skill to be able to be that consistent and that reliable, and it served them well. I am quite happy once I look at the numbers on the leaderboard. Like, there's some big gaps, 40 points with only 5 games left. It is a big gap, but it's not the 100-point gap that I was kind of expecting after Shovel Knight. So I was thinking it might be a bit of a write-off, but seeing those numbers, I know that it's not. It's absolutely not. There are some tough games left to play. Aria of Sorrow, Donkey Kong Country. There are games where particularly Skunk Off is very strong and can start to make a comeback. And the Mask has to worry about Aria of Sorrow and DKC in particular, but is very strong on inertia. So it's not over. Yeah. It's absolutely not over. 5 more games. Boy, if you wanted to see the end of this tournament, where and when would you be, Twin?
So yeah, tomorrow same time, 11 a.m. EGT. That's 5 p.m. CST for our European viewers. We are doing the other half. So Cute Shadow and Fireman in the lead, doing great with themselves. The Mask and Skunk Off will be our underdogs, trying to beat them, trying to catch up. It's going to be on Speed Gaming 1, like this very stream, this very channel. Tomorrow, so that's in 20 hours, more or less. So get ready. We are having a Russian restream tomorrow, starting at 2 p.m. in Russia. If you want to see all those races again commentated in Russian on the Comic Koala streams, and we'll just see wherever that goes. But our players are fighting for top 2 to get to the grand finals. The grand finals are going to be played on the weekend of the 13th and 14th of October on Speed Gaming as well. And yeah, this UD6 is a long process, but we're starting to see where it's going. We, like, Skunk Off lost on the finals on the 28th and 29th of July, is back there today, has a lot of work to be done tomorrow, and it's tough. It's a tough ask for all of the runners. So we're going to see you tomorrow, and we'll see how it's going to go.
Yeah, if you are looking for more speedrun action, Speed Gaming's got it for you. The Link to Pass Randomizer Summer Speed Gaming Tournament is we got our qualifiers going. And this is a cool tournament because there is a cash prize, and that's I think it's 4,000-ish all told together. So that's a pretty crazy thing. That's happening on Speed Gaming 3 right about now. I also would like to recommend Speed Gaming 2 has a Crypt of the Necrodancer showcase. This is a cool game that has a really cool speedrun scene, particularly because it's random and you're racing, but then they'll use the same seed, but then they were worried about screen watching, which is the case in most randomizers. But then they thought, like, well, what if we just both screen watch and see what happens? And it turned out it created this really interesting metagame that is really cool to watch. So definitely recommend that on Speed Gaming 2. There's also Super Metroid on 5, Celeste on 4, things going on all day, schedule in the chat as always. But that's going to do it for Ultimate Decathlon today. Hope to see you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and find out how the rest of this August tournament plays out, because it's it's not over yet.
Yeah, it's clearly not. See you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good one.